welcome to the Starting On podcast with me, Rich Lee. We're well into Series 2 now. Hope you're enjoying it. Again, there are plenty of guests in Series 1, just audio if you haven't already listened to those, but hope you're enjoying listening and watching. I'm speaking today to one of the greatest and most unorthodox talents rugby has ever seen, and that's Gloucester and England's James Forrester. James is now the CEO of Gloucester-Hartpury. They're the reigning Premier 15s champions. I was there at the final at Kingsholm last year. It was incredible. They're the best team in the women's club game in England and potentially the world. And that sounds really over the top, but you know, England being the best women's rugby team, Gloucester right now, as I record this, top in the table, winning last year. I think it's hard to dispute that they are the best club team in England and possibly the world. So there, I said it. Having burst onto the scene for Gloucester, in 2002, aged just 21, James made his England debut against the Barbarians, scoring a memorable 65-metre try, skimming none other than the great Jonah Lomu. In that same year, Ben Ryan, who happened to be James's coach at his school, St Edward's, a prestigious private school in Oxford, and that's a school that he'd earned a scholarship to. Ben Ryan was his coach, and that is Olympic gold medal winning Fijian coach Ben Ryan, no less, said of Forrester in an article in the Oxford Mail and with the headline, "Forrester tipped to take the world by storm." James is going to be a world-class player and, injury permitting, will be in his prime for the 2007 World Cup when he could be one of England's key players. And remember, England won the World Cup in 2003. 21 years ago. Jesus. Now, that choice of words was oddly prophetic because just 5 years later, James's professional rugby career was to come to an end, with a blood-curdling scream and an injury the operating surgeon said was the worst sporting injury he'd ever seen, comparing it to somebody that had been in a car crash. James's resilience is without question and his positivity is endless. Ben Ryan bookended Forrester's career with this statement. "The tragedy is, we never saw the best of him. He could do things on the field that defied belief. The game is losing a great talent." Now, James has done an awful lot in his life, in his career. We get into it. This is another one in the series of, let me show you the incredible people from our area, as well as obviously highlighting incredible people from elsewhere. I hope you enjoy this. It's a wonderful interview with a true Gloucester and rugby legend as we talk about his life and career and the impact he had on rugby and Gloucester. Having been inducted into the Hall of Fame even, following his incredible performance in the 2003 Powergen Cup final and plenty of other matches that many will remember. Follow. We are Starting Line Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Starting Line Podcast on Facebook, LinkedIn. I keep doing this. I'm sure most of you skip this, but startinglinepod.com, email hello@startinglinepod.com. If you're an agent or a potential sponsor or you've got something cool you want to talk about, I'm always open. Subscribe. You're there already. Go do it. Review us if you want to. That'd be lovely. But all that being said, without further ado, I bring to you my conversation with the mercurial talent that is James Forrester. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, there's definitely some challenges in rugby. I think, people often assume rights just always go up, as in TV money, but that hasn't been the case with all the different sort of TV models now.
I mean, it's been an odd TV model. It used to be so easy to watch rugby.
Yeah,
it used to be Sky Sports, right?
Yeah, now it's sort of Amazon, TNT.
Yeah, I mean,
Channel 4,
even
ITV.
the Six Nations. It's like, what's it on?
Yeah, you spend a minute or two.
Yeah. But I mean, so TNT. Now what's TNT? BT becomes TNT. Now it's Discovery. So I've got to get a Discovery Plus app so I can just watch. And
I still don't know because I've got Sky and I only watch rugby through my Sky app now, and I'm like, can I do it through Discovery? And I haven't even worked it out. So yeah, I'm in the same sort of boat, but. I think people assume that in sport, the curve always just goes upwards, but that hasn't been the case. I think they recently negotiated the last rounds of rights for TV rights, and I think when you factor in inflation, it's probably gone a little bit backwards.
Oh, really?
So, crowds are probably not necessarily growing. I think they're up a bit this year. So,
right.
There's loans from COVID, issues around salary cap. So, yeah, still lots of challenges, but I think Gloucester's in a really positive place now. So,
I mean, Gloucester's always cited as one of those clubs that's doing all right, financially, as profitable.
Yeah, and I think Gloucester's got really good owner, really good CEO. A bit biased, he's a friend of mine, but I think some really good people in the organisation. So I think lots of things to be positive about. I think they've got a great coaching setup. So I think they're doing a lot of the right things. There are challenges. I think the model of rugby is too reliant on the owners.
Yeah. Who wants to be a rugby club owner?
Yeah.
Who wants to do? I remember back when you were playing, when Walkinshaw was. I remember there being some serious financial. You need to chuck some money in. This is like this is going pear shaped. So it's not like rugby in money in rugby is. It's been okay, and then it's all of a sudden because of COVID or something taking a hit. It's always been a difficult model to get right.
Yeah, and the rugby's got to find a way of finding a model that's sustainable, and that's players might not love it, but that might be around controlling costs around player salaries, costs generally around the game, until you have a model that's either bringing in more money in terms of revenues, whether it's TV rights or an extra 5,000 people a week through the gates, or however you get there. But it has to be sustainable. I don't think this model where you just lean on ownership, the owners, is right. So I think.
Actually, I'll ask that. The Saudi stuff, is that like, how's that going at the minute? Because obviously that was a big flashpoint a month ago.
I think the club's official position is they don't comment on potential investment. I think, as I said, rugby's in a place where you probably have to consider offers and what's on the table. But I don't think I'm in a position to really comment on the Saudi investment.
This isn't a gotcha. I'm just genuinely interested in, because as a fan, I'm torn.
Yeah.
And I think most people probably would be. You think, okay, infrastructurally, you think of the money that could then come into Gloucester-Hartpury. Think of what that does.
Yeah,
but at what cost and to what end?
Yeah, and you've got to feel comfortable that it's happening for the right reasons. But as you say, I think so much could be done with some extra investment around infrastructure, around community. I think Gloucester Rugby is doing some amazing things with the foundation. They've got a new CEO, Rob Webber, who's got a charitable background, and I think they've really changed their model around the foundation, around the community. Putting the community at the heart of that, and having a really big impact. So
I think Gloucester's always done that really well. I remember being at school and getting picked up. I can't remember what days. We used to get picked up in a minibus, a handful of us rugby players, and we'd go to Kingsholm and be taught like digital skills and things like that. It's like, one day Henry Paul was there, and Fanalua came, and it was obviously around that sort of time. So I think they've always done good things in and around the community. And I remember, Simpson Daniel being at some competition I played in, handing out a ball, and I think it's always that there's always a presence.
I mean, I think Kingsholm and Gloucester Rugby's always been the heart of this community, and I hope it always will be. I was always very proud to represent the club, and part of our role was to go out in the community and coach and go into schools. So
go out in the community in liquid.
I don't know. I don't remember liquid.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I mean, maybe you've done
very rare visits.
Yeah,
I think probably more frequent than the players nowadays.
But, it's odd now thinking of players and not just nutrition, but generationally even to my team. They don't. I guess because being from a more sporting background, how do you celebrate? You get out there, you have a few beers.
Yeah, I think I've always considered myself quite lucky that I played in the era. I went on a charity bike ride with Mike Teague and Ian Smith a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about it. And I think Teague sort of just missed that professional era, so he probably wishes he played near where he'd earned some money, because he was probably one of the world's best players, and in market value he would have been earning a lot of money if he was playing today. And I said to him, I just feel quite privileged because I played near that still had the.
I guess you got the best of. You went to Caerphilly.
You went to Caerphilly. Played away at Caerphilly. So we had elements of that amateur era. Played with a lot of big characters who'd been fully amateur, then gone through that transition into professional, and the game was professionalising. So I got the feel like I got a bit best of both worlds.
It was a fascinating time. It was, I think,
it was a lot of fun, but we also were professional. We had some brilliant S&C coaches, some brilliant medical staff.
I know Ed Archer.
Yeah, Ed Archer, Mike Anthony.
Yeah.
We had a guy called Wayne Diesel who went on to Tottenham, head of medical at Tottenham. So we had brilliant people around us, great coaches. But we did go out and celebrate on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun and a lot of big characters in that dressing room that, not saying there aren't big characters today, of course there are, but I think everything's a little bit more controlled and, yeah.
To the detriment, do you think, of rugby or?
Well, not necessarily the quality of the sort of product, but I think, let's just say I'm glad I got the opportunity to play in that era. I think it was a lot of fun and, got paid a little bit of money and all the rest of it. But
what was a little bit of money? What was your first contract?
Oh, God. I mean, my first contract was £3,000.
A year?
Yeah.
So your first contract, you were 18, 19?
So I was 18. I'd sort of a bit of a non-traditional route. I'd missed out on England 16 and 18s.
When you say missed out, how close were you to it?
I went through South East and played really well and then just didn't play well in the trial. There's one of these massive trials. You only got sort of 10, 20 minutes to impress. And I'd impressed in the build-up over the sort of 6-8 weeks before, but I had a poor trial.
So were you one of your better county players, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, for some reason, went and played for Surrey. My school teacher thought it was the best route to get into England at 18. So played for Surrey and played really well on the London circuit. And I think I was in a position to get picked for sort of the south of England, just had a poor trial. So I missed out. So I started making plans to go travelling with two of my best buddies, one of them Johnny Goodrich, who ended up playing for Gloucester as well. So we booked one of these sort of 6-month tours around the world, Asia, India, Nepal, Thailand, usual sort of gap year thing. And and then just before I left, I'd sort of done some trials with Gloucester, having been at school and playing United and Colts, and they offered me a contract just before I went. And I said, okay, that's great, but I've already booked this ticket. And it didn't go down that well. I think.
Who offered you the contract?
Who gave you the contract? John Fiddler. John Fiddler was the sort of team manager.
Right. So that's Rob's dad, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rob Fiddler's dad.
Yeah.
And I think, sort of public school kid from Oxford, heading off travelling was not the sort of norm, especially when you had a sort of contract on the table. I made that decision to go and sort of back myself. Said, look, I'll be
happy
back.
That you did?
Yeah. It was an amazing experience. Came back in February. I was ridiculously underweight.
Well, I read 63 kilos.
That's probably a bit of an exexaggeration.
So, that's making you like 10 stone.
I don't think I would have been operating, but I was.
How tall are you? 6'4"?
6'4", but I was because we didn't have a lot of money, so we're travelling around, not eating very much.
Yeah.
And came back really underweight. People didn't really recognise me when I got back.
No way.
I was all peroxide blonde hair, and I think you could see my ribs and all this sort of stuff. So, came back, but got back into it and sort of backed myself. And unusual route. I think my first ever cap was an England A cap. So I sort of broke into the first team. Andy Hazel had an injury, so I started getting some game time in the first 15. And then very quickly got picked for England A. I think the following week I went away to South Africa with England Sevens. And then I came back and I think I got dropped from England A and then played for England 21s.
Right.
So I sort of went backwards.
I remember, wasn't it all within the course of a month?
Yeah, I think it was literally 3 weeks. It was sort of England A, toured South Africa, did the sort of World Sevens Series, South Africa and Brisbane.
Yeah.
And then I think I came back and got dropped from England A and played for England 21. So, not the sort of traditional route, but good fun. And
so, if you weren't 63, 64 kilos, what do you think you were, and how did you get to kind of competitive weight quickly?
I'm not sure I really did. I mean, I think things were pretty different those days. Obviously, I was on a S&C program, but I don't think the nutrition advice is probably where it is today. So
we're talking 99.
99. Yeah, 99. Yeah. So I'm not sure I really understood, counting your calories and your sort of macronutrients and things like that. But obviously, I started putting weight on. But when I broke the first team, I'd have still been really light. I think I was like early 90 kilos.
Wow.
So I was, but I guess my game back then, and the game was more open, it was a bit looser. I think my game then
you always were just a rangier player.
Yeah, and
You know,
I think I just covered a lot of ground. I could probably just run all day, largely because of how skinny I was, I guess. So yeah, just covered a lot of ground, tried to be everywhere. Wasn't the most physical, obviously wasn't a sort of heavy frontline ball carrier, but would sort of pop up on centres or wing. And yeah.
Let's go back. You mentioned your school. It was St Edward's.
Yeah.
I looked at the alumni. Some of you're in the Wikipedia, alumni page. You're on there. John Goodridge is on there. And you played with John at Bicester.
Yeah, so John and I go way back, played together from the age of 7. Good story, actually. Mini rugby from 7. Both our parents decided to put us both. We were both at state schools in Oxford, and we both went for a sports scholarship at St Edward's, Oxford.
Yeah.
And both ended up getting it. So went to school together from 13 to 18, and then both got scouted by Gloucester, so ended up at Gloucester together. He ended up actually having a year at Quins.
Was it Quins that showed an interest in you as well? Or they were
I had some interest from Quins
and Northampton as well.
But actually, my dad ended up writing to Gloucester, so I don't think anyone could take huge credit at Gloucester for me ending up there. I got some interest from other clubs, and it gave my dad the idea, and he actually wrote a letter to Gloucester asking if we could come and visit Gloucester. They just said, "Come and have a trial. See, we'll have a look at what you can do, lad," and that sort of thing. And
what an incredible way in!
Yeah, I'd say everything was just very different then. It was the dawn of professionalism. Academies weren't really set up, scouts, things like that. So it was all very.
So it was almost, hey, we're getting Premiership interest from Northampton and Harlequins. So James has got to be at a level. Yeah, so take a look. Why Gloucester for your dad?
We had a look at Quins and I think maybe Irish, and I don't think we were hugely impressed with Quins. Obviously, it was also quite a big commute going into London with traffic. Being in Oxford, sort of Gloucester made sense. So, and coming down here, I just loved the atmosphere, loved Kingsholm, really liked the coaches. They were
who was coaching at the time? Was it Philippe St Andre at that time, or
so it was some of the old sort of Gloucester boys like John Haynes, Pat Kiley, who coached Lydney for a long time, and then into guys like Andrew Stanley.
Yeah.
And just, really good, honest guys, great coaches. So just really enjoyed the setup. Got involved, got straight into it, got straight into the Colts. I think very quickly I played a United game. I think at actually Oxford University. Played for United at Bath away, and they had 4 World Cup players playing who'd come back and needed game time. So it was like De Glanville, Mike Catt, Abogu, and I was 17.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I was 17, and Steve Ajoma was my opposite man, number 8.
Ajoma,
who became a Gloucester player. So I was sort of 17 playing against these guys who'd just come back.
Ajoma was massive.
Cup. Yeah, I was definitely not massive.
Other notable people, Emilia Clarke.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke, and obviously lots of other things. London Mayor Sir David Lewis. Laurence Olivier.
Yes.
I think it's Lord Olivier, and Florence Pugh, who's just been in Oppenheimer and obviously very famous for lots of other things. That was 5
of... author of Wind the Willows. Author of Wind the Willows went to...
Wow. It's incredible.
And Douglas Bader. So Douglas Bader was a very famous Air Force pilot who lost his legs.
Right, okay.
Refused to stop flying, so they'd put him in the planes without legs. And he continued to fly throughout the Second World War with metal legs.
Wow.
So Sir Douglas Bader. Yeah. So some
incredible people,
some famous people.
And the school. You said that you applied for a scholarship.
Yeah.
Would you have been able to go without that scholarship?
No. So I got a sports scholarship and a bursary. Definitely not pleading poverty, but I don't think I'd have been.
It just wouldn't have been on the cards.
Wouldn't have been on the cards without that sort of support. And I always say rugby's given me everything. You look back and getting a scholarship, I think that gave me a huge opportunity. I'm a big believer in just repetition and practice. A lot of people read this book Bounce by Matthew Syed. Just being at a private school just means you are playing rugby 3-4 times a week. In our downtime, me and Johnny Goodridge just go down the playing fields and just kick a ball to each other for hours and hours and hours. And I just think that's a shame in that state school kids probably just miss out on a lot of that opportunity, just that sort of time sort of in the seat, if that makes sense, which is a shame, because I think something like half the England team are always from a private school, whereas
I mean, I looked at the stats, it's 37% of the English team are private school.
7% of kids actually go to private school, so it's obviously very...
and it's 5% of English footballers go to private school, so it's 89% that went to state school that played professional football, and in rugby it's 47, I think it was, percent that go to state school. So it's... But then... I was looking at it thinking, well, what are the reasons for that? And I looked at state school. 90% of state schools play rugby. So it's not that state schools aren't playing rugby. It's got to, as you say, be something else.
But is it rugby? Do they play 3 or 4 games a year?
It. That's the thing, isn't it? It's
not,
is it
it's not
compulsory, but is there an A and a B? What's the process? What's the setup?
Yeah, and it's just all the opportunity. I think fairly early on we had access to gyms and things like that. But I just really believe it's just that.
And also it helps when your coach was Ben Ryan.
Yeah, Ben Ryan was my coach. So Ben Ryan of Fiji Sevens.
Chief fame. Ben Ryan.
Yeah. So he came in at 18. Brilliant, really innovative. Quite fun. I remember his first meeting with us. He basically just showed us a video of his highlights from his playing career. Did he really? We were like, that's great. What was the point of it? He said, I just wanted to show.
Just want to show off. That's okay. I mean, that's okay. I found a piece in the Oxford Mail, Ben Ryan talking about you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jeez, you really did do your research.
I always do, I promise you. The headline was Forrester tipped to take world by storm.
Oh, really?
Do you remember this piece at all?
No.
Ben said, he is going to be a world-class player and, injury permitting, will be in his prime for the 2007 World Cup when he could be one of England's key players. That was 2002, so you've been playing professional rugby for 2 or 3 years at that stage.
Injury permitting.
That's the line that jumps out, right? And we will get into, get into all of that. But so you don't remember, or you didn't know that Ben said that? You must have at the time.
It's 20 years ago. I mean, it was obviously into my career, so maybe I would have been aware. But I'm sure my granddad kept all my clippings. So when he passed away, he found some books, and he just kept absolutely every newspaper clipping throughout my career.
That's incredible. Just the idea of families doing that. Did you know your granddad was doing that at the time?
So great story about granddad. So I'm very lucky to have 2 granddads quite late in my life. One was a major general. Saw a bit less of him, but my mum's dad was a big rugby man.
Didn't both of your granddads play? One played for Leicester, the other for Bath and Coventry.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is incredible. Yeah. What pedigree? And your dad played for Oxford.
Oxford was decent.
Which is a good standard.
Good standard back in the day. But my good story about my granddad. So obviously my parents were working, supporting us through childhood. So I got this opportunity with Gloucester Colts at sort of 17. So I basically had a year of being at school in Oxford, which is it's a fairly long commute, especially in the rush hour.
An hour and a half, isn't it?
Yeah. So we'd have training at 6 p.m. and my granddad would drive from Reading in his mid-late 70s, from Reading to Oxford, pick me up from school, drive me to Gloucester, watch training, drop me off about 9:30 at night, and then drive back to Reading. Wow. And my parents did some of those commutes, but largely it was my granddad was doing that for.
This is your granddad on your mum's side.
Yeah, and
What's
he was basically David Naylor.
David Naylor
passed away a little while ago, but he did that for 12, 18 months.
Wow,
so
okay.
again, it's that opportunity.
Well, they talk. It's opportunity, provision, and esteem.
Yeah,
and he's provided both opportunity and esteem in that sense. He's saying, James, you can do this, and I'm here, and I'll support you and give you the opportunity to make that happen.
You wonder, had I not got a rugby scholarship, had I not had a family around me like I did, a grandfather, parents, but grandfather who's prepared to do that in his mid-late 70s.
I mean,
that was a 6-7 hour round trip for him.
Bless him. That's incredible.
Yeah. So you do look back and wonder, think of the influence and impact rugby's had on my life, and actually, such small margins, right? And if you've taken that bit out,
it's sliding doors of the situation. It's if your dad hadn't written, maybe that letter didn't get read a week later. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your family setup then? So I read a story that your dad used to take people. Operate as a tour operator and take people around Oxford with not entirely.
I'm quite entrepreneurial. I think that's certainly my dad. So I think Dad's claim to fame is he's never worked for anyone in his life. He basically left school and he just sort of found a way to earn money. So I think early on, he'd do these sort of fake tours around Oxford. He'd go up to Japanese tourists and claim to be a qualified tour guide, and he'd do tours around Oxford. And then I think he bought a removal van. He became a removal man, and then built, and then ended up starting his own first swimming pool business. And then he ended up with this sort of wooden he'd build cabins and large wooden structures. So his claim to fame is he never worked for anyone once in his life, or took a salary. So quite a good story.
I mean, that's incredible. So what was his upbringing like?
Quite tough. So obviously the son of a major general who's, as you can imagine, back in those days, pretty hard line. So dad was sent to boarding school at 4.5. I think that was pretty tough. I think that affects you in certain ways in terms of your relationship with your parents. And I don't think there was even a boys' boarding school locally, so he actually went to a girls' boarding school for a year or so. But basically, Granddad was moving around a lot in North Africa, US, he's in Washington. I think Dad was basically boarding and looking after himself from the age of 4.5. I mean, he'd tell stories. He'd come back for Easter, and his mum lived in Fulham, Chelsea. He'd walk through the door with all his massive suitcases home for, say, Easter. And she'd look up and go, "Darling, what are you doing here?" And she wouldn't even know it was Easter holidays and things. So, So that
probably made him quite self-sufficient, quite young.
Yeah.
To the point where, leaving school, he's like, "No, I'm okay. I can do. I can take responsibility myself."
So I think that had an impact, and him and my mum wanted to be there for me and my sister. So even though I went to a boarding school, it was never. Dad was like, we lived locally, and there was never an option of boarding. So I think it was quite damaging to him. Obviously boarding schools are very different nowadays, but so that was never an option. So I was very lucky growing up. I had huge support around me. Dad took me to mini rugby at the age of 8 and became our coach day one, and went all the way through from 8 to 16 as our coach at the mighty Bicester.
And you were pretty successful with Bicester.
I think we ended up having 4 of the lads on our team played some level of professional rugby.
Wow.
We'd go around the country winning tournaments everywhere, and we'd sort of beat Bath every year. This tiny little town north of Oxford. Was it just
a good year?
Well, it starts evolving, doesn't it? Like
and then other people start coming and they see the success.
Yeah, everyone in the county. So if you basically, by the end of it, everyone that played for Oxfordshire County wanted to come and play for Bicester. Right. So
what were your first memories of playing rugby?
Being absolutely freezing. I look at the kids nowadays, they've got the skins and the tracksuits and the hats, and I just look back at photos. I just remember,
where were the tights when you were 8?
It was just like shorts, t-shirt, and I just remember getting that sort of frostbite feeling in your hand. But no, rugby's been my passion since day one. I just love it. Just something about getting the ball. I was obviously a player that enjoyed attacking, so just getting the ball in your hands.
Can you remember when you first felt like, oh, actually, I'm quite good at this? And how old do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty decent through minis, but actually, having got the rugby scholarship, I think I was quite a late developer.
This is about 13.
Yeah, so actually 13, 14, maybe even into 15, I don't think I was particularly a standout player at school. I remember my first game, having got this rugby scholarship, my first game to them was when we played RGS High Wycombe. So another big rugby school. They've had guys like Matt Dawson, Nick Duncan. I think they've had 3 England scrum halves go through there. But they're these 2 brothers, the Gilbert brothers, who both at the age of 14, they were 6'5" with beards, and I was just totally outplayed, out of my depth. It was a real sort of wake up call. It's like, oh, I'm not as good as I thought it was. And that was sort of the case for a couple of years.
Did it feel like there were a lot of eyes on you, being the scholarship kid?
Yeah, I think quite a lot expected of you, and I was fine. I was good, but not excellent. I think for those sort of 2-3 years, and then I just it was one of those. Came back one summer, I just grown a foot. Right. And
was that the year? Because I read that you scored 35 tries during one season.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Where you're getting this stats from?
So do you think it was the height?
Yeah, and obviously,
how do you think that helped?
Just that's going through that development phase. That's, I guess, puberty, and suddenly I was a foot taller. I was a lot faster and stronger, and yes, definitely started having more impact. But I wasn't like one of these kids that played in the first team at school in the sort of fourth or fifth form. I was only broke in the lower six, so. But yeah, it's a really strong rugby school. But yeah, definitely, I think took some time. I think the way my style of play maybe isn't suited to sort of being someone that gets into a first team at 15. I was developing.
Were you
my
playing
game.
8 at this time?
Yeah, 6, 8.
You always played 6 or 8?
Yeah, 6 or 8, and then.
I did
play in the back line when I was 13 at club.
Okay.
Because actually, again, back Johnny Goodrich, he did this parents teacher swap. So he went and spent a year in Australia, and we didn't have a fly half. So I think at 13 I spent that year playing fly half, which I think great for development.
That probably was brilliant for your development, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just to consider what it's like from a back's perspective, as opposed to
improve your skills and understanding. And so a bit of that.
How were you at kicking?
So I kicked at goal for the first half of my upper 6 year. So back to my granddad, because back in the olden days, a lot of number 8s used to kick. So my granddad would always nag me, and he'd take me out and we'd do kicking practice.
Was your granddad number 8 as well?
Yes.
Right.
And then I grew up right next to Iffley rugby pitch where Oxford Uni played, literally over the fence. So I'd actually break into the ground. When I say break in, I'd jump over a fence, and I'd just go and practice my kicking. So I was a decent goal kicker, but then I lost us a game. We lost one game in my upper 6 year, which still haunts me. And I scored a try and then should have converted it from about 10 metres in from the post, and I missed it. We lost the game by 2 points, and then we brought a young 17-year-old fullback in from the second team, and he took over the goal kicking, and that was sort of the end of my goal kicking days. But yeah, I was all right. I used to practice it a lot.
Did you ever kick a goal for Gloucester?
No. You know, well, we had Ludwig Mercier. So
I mean, you did
early on. So
okay, we'll get to Mercier.
That was never in the conversation.
I remember Mercier when they raised the flags. I don't know if this was PR or not, but where they raised,
I think they're still higher than other clubs.
It's
now.
Hilarious because they're like, well, we don't know if it's gone over or not. It's too he kicked so far and so high. So you had your Premiership debut in the 2000-2001 season. Do you remember it?
Yeah. So the season was basically over. The Premiership season, they had one game left, the men, and then I think they had a European semi, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they actually got into the Heineken Cup semi-final. So what they did is they basically put out a second team for the last Premiership game. So they pit about 4 of us academy boys, went go and have a go, and it was a sort of game you'd expect. At the end of the season, neither team really cared.
Yeah.
It was a pretty.
So it was a done deal.
It was a pretty poor game, and it was sort of getting to the end of the game. And I don't think I'd had a particularly big impact, and all I remember is there was a penalty on like 10-metre line. I just took it quickly, and I ended up scoring under the post. So had a bit of a moment, which was nice.
Scoring on your Premiership debuts.
Yeah, so you get a little bit of recognition, but it wasn't a sort of big time game. But nice to sort of get that game at the end of the season. And I think off the back of that, 4 or 5 of us were given first team contracts. Yep. It's still,
and that was the 3. That was the 3.
No, I think the 3 was that year. And then the next year we went up to like 9 or 12 or something. So
I mean, could you live on that?
No, but I think I was still doing a bit of uni then. I think I had a bit of a student loan and
okay. Because you dropped out of uni, didn't you?
So I did 4 terms at uni. So the story, again, very different times. Philippe Sonandre was our coach, and my head was in rugby anyway. But I left Birmingham on a Friday, and I was picked in a Premiership game against Wasp, which was live on Sky on a Friday night. And I drove down the M5, just hit one of those horrendous traffic jams. I think it was a big pile-up, a big crash. And I'd left in good time, but I ended up turning up half an hour before kickoff. So I ended up turning up at like 7 o'clock. Obviously got a bollocking. And I think Philippe called me into the office on the Monday and said, "You played well, but I'm dropping you because you were an hour late. This is not acceptable. You need to think about this university thing." So I was sort of actively pressurised to give up uni. And to be honest, I was fairly easily swayed because I think I just wanted to be a rugby player.
What were you studying at uni?
History and sociology.
Okay. Why history and sociology?
I don't know. I really enjoy history. I have no idea about sociology. I think I literally went along, and I think the first week, I don't even think I knew what sociology was, but I really liked history. I still do. I'm quite a big history fan. But I've no idea why I was doing the sociology bit. But
When you say you're a history fan, what do you mean?
I just always, so if I've got time, a lot of the books I'll read will be either history books or historical fiction. Just always been really interested in
Any
it.
particular era?
Did history A-level, did politics as well. World wars, I think, sort of how Europe developed over that sort of 18th, 19th century. That was in my A-level. So yeah, just really enjoy my history, listen to sort of history podcasts and yeah.
So you weren't too fussed to leave uni behind?
No.
And also it shows him some commitment.
Yeah. Look, I just always loved my rugby, and I think if I was ever getting an opportunity, I was going to take it. The commuting was tough. Again, it was a different era, and the support wasn't around you. I think nowadays you'd be actively encouraged,
Do that as
or
well.
made to stay in uni. Whereas those
Like
days,
Faye Waboso the other day, didn't
Yeah.
play because he was doing a test, right?
Yeah.
And that's just completely fine. It's like you're playing for England in the
That's-
Six Nations, and
that's how it should be.
it is how it should be. But
You
it just
don't know,
absolutely wasn't
like,
the case then.
With my knee, you just don't know how things are going to end. So, but look, I don't regret it. I managed breaking the first team fairly young.
So you were
few
about 20, right?
Andy Hazel picked up a few really bad injuries in that sort of year or two. So I got probably a bit more.
Can you remember the back row when you came into it?
So I remember my first proper start where I was picked on merit. We played Newcastle at home, and I often tell the story. Everyone was terrified of Junior Paramore. He's the chief. Even the big senior guys like Phil Vicker were pretty scared of him, I think. And we were playing Newcastle, and they had a lot of those Samoan boys like Inga, Pat Lam, Epi Taini. So that was a big game for our Samoan lads, Junior and Teza.
Yeah.
And they dropped Junior, and I got picked on merit for the first time. And I remember I had to get some treatment after the team run, or after they announced the team. And I went back over to the change rooms, and it was dead. Everyone had gone home. But I could just hear one person in the shower. I was walking to the shower, I was thinking, please don't be Junior, please don't be Junior. I walk in, it's Junior, and we're just sort of standing there washing. And he doesn't say a word to me for like a minute or two. And then he just goes, hey, Django. I'm like, yes, Junior. He said, those Samoan boys up in Newcastle, they're going to be mighty pleased I'm not playing. I was like, yes, Junior, I agree. And then, ironically, Azam got sent off in the first minute for fighting with Epi Taini.
Was this the one at Kingsholm?
Yeah.
That was a big flashpoint.
Yeah.
That was
my first start on merit.
I mean, that was that whole racist thing. Do you remember all of that?
Yeah,
So it was
Azam got sent off.
I remember it really well.
Words were exchanged, a big fight. But because Azam was a hooker, they needed to put a new hooker on, so they pulled me off. So my that start lasted about 3-4 minutes, and then I watched the rest of the game on the bench. Yeah,
brilliant. I mean, how do you kind of reflect on that, your first season, I guess, as a being started on merit? So that was the 2001-2002 season?
Oh, yeah, God, it's tough.
I think
because obviously our really successful one. But I think we overachieved that year. I think we ended up finished third in the league, and I think the year before the team, and I hadn't been involved, but the team had finished something like 9th or 10th.
So off the back of that, you got picked for the England 15 against the Barbarians.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where you scored.
Yeah,
65 meters.
Yeah, I had 5 meters every year, but maybe it's 55. But yeah, that was brilliant week. I think that was the first time they didn't cap that England Barbars game. So that was a bit annoying. So you didn't get a cap for it, but we had a brilliant team out. It was a really sort of
who else was playing in that?
So Vicky was playing, Simpson Daniel. God, I can't really remember. It was Joe Worsley. I think Steve Thompson was. Andy Gomersall.
Wow, okay, so that's a stacked England
team. Yeah, we had a strong team out. It was annoying they didn't cap it. But
on the Barbarians, so obviously Lomu is the name everybody remembers.
At the time, I can't remember if it's still the case, but it's something like the most capped Barbars team they put together. And so the back three was Lomu, Cullen, Montgomery.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you had like Pat Lam and was Zinzambrook playing. So and obviously Sinbad scored that unbelievable try, and he ran round. He sort
Was
of
that
threw the ball in the air, tricked Lomu.
Yeah.
Then I think he gassed Montgomery and then beat Christian Cullen in the corner.
Yeah.
It's like,
but wasn't it 5 minutes before that you scored your try?
Yeah, I think he was just
you
after
scored
me,
and
so
then he scored.
He totally.
It's like, if you're going to do that,
Yeah, but we were great mates. So I think we were chuffed for each other.
When was the last time you watched that try?
I'd love to lie and say like 20 years ago, but it does every now and again. People show it to me, or
if I showed it to you, would it embarrass you?
Yeah, please don't. Definitely don't. I mean, I don't know how many views of it, but probably half of them are my family, to be honest. Yeah, it's a good day. And I remember actually, there wasn't a function after the game. So I think we had food and then just sort of all disappeared. And I actually went to Oxford with some mates. I think it was the first time I remember being sort of recognised, and it was in a kebab shop. So obviously that night, so I went into Oxford, had a few beers with some of my schoolmates. And then we went and got a kebab, and a couple of lads in the kebab shop recognised me from that day, and that was just quite, because you get recognised around Gloucester a bit, but being recognised in Oxford was quite surreal. I sort of remember that moment, thinking, "Oh, that's a bit different." So, yeah, it's a great day to do that. Vickery was captaining, I think, and me and Sinbad to sort of make that debut together. Pretty special day, and I remember just being in awe of Lomu. I remember kick-off. It was a year or two before I was at school watching him in the World Cup. Yeah. And then you just I remember just standing there waiting for kickoff and just staring at him, just thinking, this is bizarre. But yeah, brilliant experience.
Yeah. I mean, did you interact with him at all?
So I had my auntie came to the game. We actually walked past him on the staircase. And I think she made some comment, and I was like, "Shut up, auntie!" And she's tiny, and obviously he's this giant of a man, but not massively. He's so. He
didn't say anything as you passed him.
No, I was probably just like,
you're like, I just want to get away from you as quickly as I can possibly get away.
But, what an icon! He changed rugby. So,
he really did.
Yeah.
Did he inspire you at all? Because 95. So,
I mean that. So
you would have been 14.
I think again, because I love my attacking rugby. I was a huge fan of that era of New Zealand rugby. So my hero actually, obviously Lomu, but was Christian Cullen, who actually then, because I got an opportunity to invite some rugby players out to Singapore for some events, I got Cullen to open my business. So Christian Cullen cut the ribbon on when I launched my business in Singapore, which is an amazing moment for me. So, and then Cullen was playing in that game as well, and he was an absolute hero for me. Cullen. Lomu is obviously that sort of iconic.
I think Cullen was incredible because he wasn't a big guy.
No, he's really small, but just the most unbelievable athlete. And I used to love watching Super 12s.
Yeah, when we wake up early, 8:30, Sky News, Sky Sports.
Yeah, so I think for sure that era of sort of New Zealand Super Rugby definitely inspired me. And I was also, I loved.
They played a much more attacking style, didn't they? And that was
Mike Teague and the back row of England those days, Winterbottom, Dean Richards, but definitely that era was really inspiring.
Who was in the back row for the All Blacks at that time?
Oh, it would have been Zinzan, Josh Cronfield. Can't think who the six was. But yeah.
No, I mean, as you say, just incredible. I used to absolutely love that. I think when I played, attacking was, I loved defending. I did, but I was a bit bigger than everybody else for a period of time, and basically any space was fun. Yeah, you imagine that you are, you imagine that you were a Lomu, right? You're running around.
That's what you need. You need those role models to inspire people and get them out playing. And
we'll talk about women's rugby in a bit, I think, because I think that's important to talk about role models and inspirations and 100%. Pathways into the game and things like that. 2003, he won the Young Player of the Year, the RPA Young Player of the Year, Sports Writer Young Player of the Year. So this is your second year as a professional?
Yeah, probably second year in the first team.
I remember that year incredibly well, won the Powergen Cup.
Yeah, that was the best year of my career.
It was a phenomenal. As a Gloucester fan, that was an incredible year. I was 14, I think 13, 14 at the time. So again, my own aspirations to play. So I'm watching you guys. I'm watching Junior Paramore. To be silly with the shed and all those things that year. 75,000 people at Twickenham.
Yeah,
you scored.
Yeah, scored one. That was that year was really special. I think, my regret is I think we should have done more with that team. I think we should have won the.
Well, you came top.
Well, should have, could have. I guess. What's unbelievable.
But you came top of the league, and it was the first year they brought playoffs in.
Yeah,
and I think
it was tough for us to take. But
look, to lose to Wasps at Twickenham in the way that, it felt frustratingly inevitable that Gloucester, this plucky upstart club.
I think we had a 3-week break, didn't we, for the final, and it was all a bit.
And they played
hard,
the week before, 2 weeks before, maybe.
Hard to know how to manage. But look, when you talk about leadership, I think the biggest thing I've learned is taking responsibility. So I hate people that make excuses. So Wasps deserved it in the end, but it was definitely a tough one to take. And I just look at the quality in that squad. Yeah, that'd be my biggest.
I'm going to ask you a question about that in a second, but. The Guardian after that said, English rugby can now officially welcome a new fresh-faced star, while the man of the match award for this is the Powergen Cup went to Mercier. I think he scored 20 points that day. Yeah. They said the most eye-catching presence, as predicted, was Gloucester number 8, James Forrester. Okay. So I think you've made your... I think the point I'm trying to make is, in a couple of years' time, with what Ben Ryan said, and then a couple of years in the league, you were already... people were looking at you thinking, "Oh my God, you've really got something big and different that you're adding to." You're very different back row to what most had seen at that point.
Yeah, I was different. I guess I had a different style. I was probably in reality a bit of a hybrid back forward, wasn't I? I think
you'd
I wonder if I might
chuck you in the centre.
Maybe, yeah.
Because you weren't afraid to put boot to ball.
No.
And there weren't many forwards. There weren't many forwards that there was off. Keith Wood. They would occasionally do it, and then you. But you also come off though. That's the thing. You'd score from them.
I used a chip in the European final.
You did, and that was the 2006.
I played a lot of football, so I played more football than rugby up to the age of 13. I do think, and I'm a big believer in multi-sport. Playing multi-sport up to your
what position
sort of 16.
Were you in football?
I was a sort of centre back, to be honest. So I wasn't a flair footballer, but I think it really helps just having that weight, understanding how to sort of chip and kick on. So it definitely helped my game. But I think that was my favourite year. Winning Young Player of the Year. I always say that probably means more to me than my caps, because I think for me my England career was pretty underwhelming, and I'm not overly proud of my 2 rubbish England caps, and actually winning that award, because it was voted for by the players, meant a lot to me, and probably still does, and probably means more.
Before I guess we get onto England caps and shoulda, woulda, couldas of things, can you name that Powergen Cup final team? Go start with one. So start with Lucid. Who would have been Lucid that year?
So I think. Did Trev start? I know he had a lot of injuries. So I think I can. So it would have been Trev, Azam, Deeks obviously started because Vix was injured and he lifted the cup. Pasty was injured, wasn't he? So it was Rob Fiddler and was it?
It was
Ed Pearce.
No, it was Adam. It was Eustace.
Sorry, Eustace. So Adam Eustace and
Fiddler,
Fids, and then myself, Hazy, Boa. Back row, Junior was on the bench, wasn't he?
He was. What was Bowen like as a captain?
Oh, brilliant. Just full of chat, very amusing. He would actually talk himself up while running with the ball. So he'd actually,
I've seen those players.
he'd be if he was like making a break, he'd actually be commentating on himself. A big character, I think one of those guys. I think throughout my career at Gloucester, our leaders were more lead by example than sort of.
But he was
what they say. He was just tough. You knew he was going to outwork anyone. It's just a traditional South African 6. Guys like him and Hazy allowed me to play the way I wanted to play.
Yeah, because they do. The
work they did. Jake
puts
would carry hard and hit a lot of rucks, and so brilliant. And obviously felt very fortunate to start with Junior on the bench. Obviously Junior's a great player. And then Gomersall, Ludo, Tezza and Toddy.
Henry.
It was Tezza and Henry.
It was. It was
Henry.
It was very often Van Leeuwen and Todd.
Sinbad, Marcel, and Tina Stelport.
Yeah. Can you remember the bench?
Oh God, it's testing me now. 4-0 would have been Hooker.
Yep.
Ron Ciro.
Yes.
Second row Ed Pearce.
Yep.
Back row Junior.
Yep.
Scrum off Clive Stewart-Smith.
Yep.
Simon Amor.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's exactly it.
Jeez,
there you go. There you go. Well done.
So I got everyone apart from Eustace.
Yeah. Who only because you thought you might have been injured.
Well, no, I thought Mark Cornwall was injured.
Right.
I thought maybe Ed Pearce started, so I would have got used on the bench. I couldn't remember who started.
Right.
Yeah. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well done.
Good squad.
I reckon that's a
pass.
Yeah, that is a pass. Yeah. It's an A-.
Yeah. Well, it was a great day, and we've got a 150-year anniversary on dinner on Saturday at the club, and they did this Hall of Fame team recently. And actually, what you notice, because it was a good little era for us, and what you notice is quite a lot of that team is from that sort of.
I mean, it was an incredible team. Like obviously Vickery not playing, but when you think of the front row, and not to take anything away from Deeks, but when you've got Woodman, Azam, Vickery,
and
think of the lead
made me look good because they the quality platform of our pack gave me great platform and allowed me to play the way I wanted to play, and so very lucky really.
So I mean, what did you do that night?
So I think Don Caskey, the ex-Gloucester player, owned the Strand.
Right.
So from memory, we just
headed
the best bit is always the changing room. Did we cut off Tez's dreadlocks? I have a feeling we cut. Tez said if we won, he'd cut off his dreadlocks. I think his dreadlocks went in the changing room at Twickenham, and then it's just those moments with your mates. You can't. I think Dean Ryan said to me when I retired, if you could bottle up that feeling after a game with your mates when you've had a win, if you could bottle it up and sell it, you'd be a billionaire very quickly. Like that was the special bit. And then my favourite bit was always the bus. So you'd have a two-hour bus journey, and obviously everyone's just elated. And
who were the best?
Having a few beers.
Who was the best in the changing room?
Oh God. We sat together back row. So Hazy and I would often, I think, choose the music. Hazy particularly, but him and I were really into hip hop, and I think the older boys hated it.
Right.
But we sort of always had the stereo, so we would always put on like Notorious B.I.G. and stuff. Yeah.
Who else?
90s hip hop.
Yeah, and I'm a huge hip hop fan.
Yeah.
So who else?
So and Marcel Garvey, Johnny Goodridge, all really big hip hop fans. So we sort of controlled the music, and the older boys would whinge, but I think we.
I remember Garvey after when he got his first contract, or it wouldn't have been long after. I remember seeing him in an Audi TT. And I thought it was the coolest car. Obviously, I'm quite young still.
No, hairdresser's car.
No, I know. But
I'm amazed Marcel spent some money. Actually, he's a fairly frugal chap, so he probably sold it quite quickly. No, he's done very well for himself.
What's he doing now? He went over to France.
He did an IT degree, and he's got a role in an IT company in France. So we still stay in touch a lot. He's a really good mate.
Well, that's the thing. Do you and that team still keep in touch?
So quite a lot of guys. So Johnny Goodridge, him and I grew up together, so we still speak probably weekly.
Yeah.
See a lot of Simpson Daniel.
Where's he now? Is he still around here?
Yeah, he's Cheltenham. So our boys, we coached the under-11s together at Cheltenham Tigers.
Oh, no
Our
way.
Boys are in the same class at school.
Okay.
So see a lot.
Well, that worked out pretty well.
See a lot of him.
Oh God, the pressure on those boys.
No, we're fairly chilled.
It's like, listen, we made our England debut together.
Yeah,
you're in the same year.
Yeah. From that team, I just named Andy Gomersal's stay at mine Saturday night because he's coming to this dinner. Okay. Jake came and stayed with me for a week or two. He had to come back to Cheltenham. This was a couple of years ago. He's back in Cape Town. Yeah. See a lot of Andy Hazel, Alex Brown. Obviously, wasn't in that 03 team, but joined I think the next year. Yeah. We're obviously working together now, and see a lot of Brownie. Mark Cornwall works at Hartpury. Yep. So we do.
Is still?
Yeah, so he's in Cheltenham. He's actually coached Cheltenham College. So I see quite a bit of him. Vickery. We had a big Christmas lunch. We always get quite a lot of the old boys. He came along. We did it at his restaurant. Yeah. Trev Woodman was there. Chris Forty works at Hartpury. There's still a lot of connections. I think we had some success, and I think that helps bring you together.
It bonds you. It really does. You don't have,
and also, tough times as well, but some good days. So and I think that there are a lot of guys I imagine stay in touch with.
What's Junior doing now?
So Junior works at Bristol, so he's on the operations side, Bristol. Yeah. So a lot of guys stay very local. I love the area. So I obviously went to Singapore for 10 years, but chose to come back to Cheltenham just because we love the area. we had friends here. Yeah, nice part of the world, good schools. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You were named in the 37-man training squad for the World Cup.
Yes.
But then you got a wrist injury. So this is the
So
2003
I
World
actually
Cup.
I played a few more games that season, but I actually did the wrist. If you went back to the footage, their centre late tackled me. I think Henry Poole dummied the ball, and I was on the line, and their centre hit me late, and I wasn't expecting it. I fell back and landed on my wrist, and I snapped my scaphoid lunate ligament.
I see the scar.
Yeah, a few scars. So that was it. So look, I think I guess I would have gone on that summer tour to New Zealand with England, and I guess would have had a shot. I would have probably played in that New Zealand Maori game, which I think was pretty challenging.
Yeah. Did Henry go over with that one? I think was that the year that he got picked?
I think so. God, you're really testing my memory now.
Yeah, sorry to do,
but
out of intrigue more than anything.
I think.
Can I ask a question about that? How did you boys respond to Henry Poole coming into the squad? Because there was a lot of headlines around him at the time. Because I mean, I forget what he was on, but it was a lot.
I think it was 250. It was £1 million 4-year deal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so,
I think he was the first £1 million.
Yeah, just massive excitement. I mean,
yeah. So everybody
I think
he
no-showed for his press conference.
Really,
true Henry style. But no, we were massively excited. I mean, we grew up. So Johnny Goodrich is a massive Wigan fan. Right. So grew up watching quite a lot of Wigan. Yeah, he's a really likable guy. Obviously, very outgoing, very charismatic. Enjoyed a beer on a Saturday night. But yeah, we were just excitement.
That's good to hear because you hear about these players that come in on these marquee contracts, and people might take against them, or so it's good to hear that he fitted.
No, I think I think he had some good moments in his 15th career, but it wasn't always sort of as smooth sailing as he probably would have liked in terms of.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure to make it work internationally.
But rugby union is very different. There's a lot less space. But I tell you what, if you go back and watch, so England won 4 Hong Kong sevens in a row. I think he played in all of them. He was just a different level at sevens.
He's ridiculous. Like some of the things he could do.
Well, I mean, just the way he could manipulate
we talk about
space.
your Ciprianis and playing players with that, that flair and that ability. And I think Henry Poole was one of the first.
So Henry was ridiculously talented. I just think rugby union maybe just couldn't quite find the position for him. Like, was he a 13?
Where do you think he was?
I think probably. 12. I think 12 probably was his position, but I think with Henry's skill set, I think he probably was just slightly more suited to league. So while he's still probably very, very.
He went back. Did he go back to it? I think he did.
He went to Leeds, didn't he? I'm not sure he ever went. Did he go? Maybe he had 1 year back in league, but he's still a very good player. But he was world class at league and he was world class at sevens.
Yeah.
But no, we were just massively excited. We were like, at that time I was still a fairly young lad in the team. So to have a world class player like that turn up is just nothing but excitement. There's no resentment around the money or anything like that. We were just. I
guess also then it's if possibly players see that and think that opens doors for us too down the line because it sets a precedent. Yeah. And then maybe at some stage,
and we wanted great players on our team. We want to try and win premierships. Yeah. And so it's nothing but excitement. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were injured in that match. So did you go and train with that 37-man squad?
No, I don't think I ever. So I think they named me in the training squad, but I don't think I ever then met up. So
and you were 22 at that time, so. Yeah, 22, 23. So,
and I'd been in the squad a bit. So I'd been in the squad for the autumn before, and I remember Sinbad played all those games. So they played, I think, all 3 of the big nations. They played Australia, New Zealand, South Africa in that autumn before, and I think I was the 5th choice in that squad. So I think you had Delalio Hill back, and I think Worsley was on the bench. Right. I think Moody was injured, and those 4 they didn't pick up 1 injury in that whole series, so I didn't get an opportunity. And I think. Yeah, because I think after that wrist, I was then just very consistently injured.
It was wrist, elbow, shoulder.
Yeah, I would have loved a chance in that sort of period.
Yeah,
and I didn't really get it. My England opportunities came a bit later, and I think I was then in that sort of pattern of just consistently.
2004 Wales, 2005 Samoa.
Yeah, and by then I was sort of getting in almost an injury a season, and I do think it just sort of affects.
Were you gutted not to be part of that 2003 squad?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Sinbad was devastated. He just missed out. Obviously, I I was injured, so it wasn't an option. But yeah, of course. I mean, I remember watching the final, and you're chuffed, but part of you's like, I think the odds were against me going. I'd have had to have done something special to get on that plane, but just to not have the chance to join that training squad was.
Do you think was it all injury orientated for you? Was it all like?
I mean, again, I've said earlier, I'm a big believer in taking responsibility, looking out of windows rather than mirrors. So look, there were times where I probably wasn't consistent enough. There were definitely flaws in my game. I don't mind. I'm very happy to say that.
What was a flaw in your game?
Oh, it'd just be the physicality bit. As I said, I was probably almost a bit of a hybrid back. So I'd say I always played better in sort of September, October and March, April, May than those deep winter months playing on grass pitches. So, I was probably more of a fast track player. Probably, I think, just some consistency, whether some of that was around injuries, probably consistency in my physicality, I think. So I don't really mind.
Were they the work-ons or things that they'd given you?
So I remember Phil Larder, England Fates coach, telling me, I remember him saying to me, "You're a very good defender, but to get in this England back row, you need to be a world-class defender. And you're not there yet." So, I'd get feedback.
I mean, it was
that fairly regularly.
Probably the hardest England back row to crack.
Yeah, and then there were guys guys I didn't even name. So then you had Moody, Corrie, the Sanderson brothers, Andy Hazel. Yeah. It was very Worsley, and then the big three. So it was very, very tough to break into that back three. And probably unfortunately for me, my best rugby was when those three were just
at their best almost as well.
Yeah,
and leadership, that bit older, I guess. So, arguably they bring that with them, big characters, exactly that.
Yeah.
So do you feel any anger or upset towards, missing out on?
Look, I mean, I would have loved some more caps, whether I was good enough to get more, I guess, for other people. But you grew up dreaming of playing for England. I sort of just about managed to get some caps, but I would have loved a more meaningful England career. So that's why I'm proud of some of the stuff we did at Gloucester and winning the young player thing. As I said, probably means more to me than my caps. But of course, I'd bite someone's arm off for another 10, 20 caps. Yeah, of course.
I guess then it does get us to April 2007 when a minute into the game.
So we played Newcastle. So I'd come back from another injury. I'd done I'd done a knee, and I'd done a smaller knee injury, had to have an operation 6 weeks, come back, broken my wrist, so my thumb was hanging down, had a operation on that, came back, and I think I had one game against Newcastle, played really badly, I remember. I just had a terrible game, but still got picked the next week to start against Bristol. So it was Bristol at Ashton Gate,
Right. So it was a minute in? Do you remember it well?
Yeah, literally from kickoff. I think they won the ball and playing some phase, and I just... I remember, I think a guy called Sam Cox threw a dummy, and they had a big six, and I was sort of marking him, and I sort of bought the dummy, so I went to tackle the six, but then realised that he'd dummied it, so I tried to make ground back up and get back to tackle the ball carrier, and I just sort of got myself in a bad position, and it was a sort of what they call a non-contact injury, so my knee just collapsed. I wasn't even hit by anyone. Just sort of
did it twist in the turf?
And it collapsed. So my stud stayed in the ground and my knee collapsed and hit the floor. So it was one of those ones you don't want to watch on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a quote from the time you said, "I'd ruptured every single part of my knee. The patella tendon that connects the kneecap to the shin bone was gone. Both menisci and my anterior cruciate ligament had ruptured, and I'd also taken out a big lump of bone from the knee." The surgeon, Andy Williams, who's treated lots of international sportsmen, said it was the worst sporting injury he'd ever seen. He could only compare it to someone who'd been in a car crash.
Yeah.
And nobody touched you?
No one touched me. So very bizarre. So,
and you are 26 at this time, I think?
I think I just turned 26 a month before.
26.
2 months before,
apparently a blood-curdling scream, which, do you remember that?
Yeah, so... one of the main things, when Gloucester fans come up to me, But actually, more than anything else, they say to me, "I was there when you did your knee at Bristol." I'm like, "Okay, thanks for reminding me."
Do you hate being reminded of it?
No, I always appreciate people coming to say hi, so I don't really mind. But it was tough. I think my mum didn't really watch me because I got injured so much and couldn't really deal with it, and actually hadn't been for a while, and came to that game with sat my wife, and they heard me screaming, so wasn't a great day. And
was that the worst pain you've been on a pitch?
Oh, worst pain
ever.
Yeah, it was hideous. But they sort of missed the damage, because the ACL actually can be very painful for a minute or two, but then almost sort of dies down. So It shouldn't be that painful. And I think I rang them the next day, almost in tears, the physios or doctors, and I said, "Guys, I'm in tears. Like, I'm in so much pain." And then they said, "Okay, well, let's get you in for a scan Monday morning." I went and saw Roddy Jakes at the Lister Hospital, and they sort of started ultra-scanning my knee, and that's when they realised my patellar tendon had gone, and that's why I was in so much pain, because essentially my leg wasn't connected. It was basically so I shouldn't have been standing up.
How were you getting around?
I had crutches.
You had crutches,
but they just thought I'd done ACL. So normally that'd be okay, but I shouldn't have been upright, because essentially my knee's not connected, and that's why I was in so much pain. And I think they had to take like 2 litres of blood off my knee, that they just drained a load of knee out, and then they had to rush me up, and I had to have a bit of an emergency operation. So an ACL operation should be, I think, in about an hour and a half. I could be wrong.
Right.
But I think my operation was 7 hours. So
wow.
I think I went down at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. at night. They sort of pit. I think when you're a sportsman, they often pit you at the end of their day, if it's an emergency, to get you in. So I think I went in at 5, and I didn't get back to my room till 1 in the morning. My wife was obviously sat there. My partner at the time, wife now.
Was she pregnant? Was she pregnant?
No, soon after, but obviously panicking.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of damage.
Were you panicking?
About the injury? I think you sort of kid yourself a bit, and I think, in fairness, they hide it from you a bit, because what's the point? What's the point of being totally honest with you? So I think people around me were positive, but I think coaches and senior physios knew I was probably going to really struggle to come back from the injury, but they knew I'd want to try like mad. So in many ways, what's the point of being 100% honest? You might as well tell people.
Do you think you were just prone to injury, unlucky with injury? It was the way you played. What do you think?
I think I was prone. I think if you look at my stature, I'm naturally quite a thin, lean person. If you look at things like I had a number of wrist injuries, operations. My wrists are very thin, my ankles. If you compare me with like Pete Buxton, who's a great teammate of mine, I mean, if we stood next to each other, we're just built incredibly differently. Yes. And obviously my game was my speed, so I guess I'm doing things at higher speeds than, say, a Pete Buxton, I guess. He would probably work a lot harder than me, but so I guess when you put those two things together,
Tyndall talking on a podcast about Buxton, and he'd always do things in training, like injure other people, accidentally injure people. And
so
he stood Bucker.
Every time he stood on my toe, and he did that way with his huge studs, and he killed the toenail. And he was famous for injuring players. Like, he injured more of our players than opposition. And I actually posted my toenail to him. I actually put an envelope and addressed it and stamped it and sent it to his house when the toenail died and fell off.
How long did it take to come off?
Yeah, it took one knows it sort of died slowly over a few weeks.
So, that's really premeditated. That's kind of psychotic in a way, James. But did he appreciate it?
Yeah, Bucko got a lot of banter, so I think he was a great guy.
So you don't think there's any? It's just physiological. Because I mean, for me, I dislocate easily. I have a jaw operation, thumb operation, knee operation, and they say that it's a hypermobility thing because I'm weaker in extremes of motion of movement.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm bench pressing, I'm quite far down.
And I think I'm similar. So again, I think I'm similar, and I get myself in some strange positions, which in some ways probably made me.
That's a difference.
I was in some ways, but There's no doubt I was injury prone.
Do you think when England coaches are thinking of you, when Woodward's thinking of you, do you think he was thinking, there's a risk there?
Well, I think when Wood was there, I wasn't as injury prone. And no, I just think he thought other people were better than me. But maybe.
What was your relationship like
later
with Woodward?
Well, I wouldn't say I had a huge relationship with him because I guess I was a bit of a fringe player.
Yeah, right.
I had a few conversations with him. I played really well in that England A series in 2002. And so, he spoke to me a few times because I was asking the question, well, am I going to get a chance in the first team? And that was the year they won the Grand Slam. And obviously, again...
And that was the one that just... as an England fan...
And I think I got man of the match in the A game and I was hoping I'd get a chance when they went away to Ireland. Yeah. And Clive did say to me, look, you've played really well, you couldn't have done more. But I can't drop Joe Worsley or Dahlia or Hill or quite rightly. So I didn't. He wouldn't talk to me that often, but you'd often also have that relationship with the forwards coach. So Andy Robinson was forwards coach time, so he probably communicated a bit more than with me. Phil Larder, defence coach, a big part of my game that I was working on. So
I mean, you said that around the point of that, the big injury kept breaking down. What do you remember of that?
Yeah, well, as I think I mentioned a moment ago, so in the build-up to the big one, I did my other knee 6-week injury. I broke my thumb, and they were like literally back-to-back. So I come back, play, injure. And so that happened 3 times in a row in the lead-up. And then I came back and did my knee. So I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it's luck or physiology.
Did you ever get to the point of being especially depressed about it? Like, how are you mentally around all of this? Because
it's tough. The boys sort of keep you going. I remember when I did my big knee, I actually went back a couple of hours. So the boys obviously played that whole game, got changed, went to dinner, and I think they were all just leaving the stadium. And I just ordered a new set of golf clubs, and they'd arrived the day before. And I think Andy Hazen knew about it. He made some joke about, you won't be using those golf clubs for the next 12
Cheers,
months. So some dark humour in changing room. So it's really tough. I was rehabbing for 18 months, so that is really hard. I had a great physio in Bob Stewart, who's the sort of England and Lions physio. So I was lucky to have him. But there were some dark times. I remember sort of opening up. The boys had to train on Christmas Day because we played Boxing Day, WAS every Boxing Day. So I think we'd do a team run on Christmas Day. And what I didn't want to do is be seen to cutting corners or not doing what the players are doing. So I'd always want to be in when the boys were in. Right. So I do remember opening up the rehab gym on Christmas Day. So the boys were out on the pitch doing a light team run, and I'm sort of opening up the gym and turning the lights on Christmas Day. And I just remember that was because, you should just be with your family if you're not playing really. But I didn't want to sort of miss out. I didn't want to be seen to be not in on the days the players were in. So it was tough. It was tough. I think there's probably always suspicion. As I said, I think the people around me and the medical team probably dressed it up a bit and to give me confidence and get me through that rehab period. Because if you're told there's very little chance of getting back, then that's going to be pretty tough. So
what kind of rehab were you doing?
Oh, it was brutal. I spent a month in Boston. There's a guy, Bill Knowles, a lot of guys back then would go out to see. We'd do all this we do a lot of backwards work that really hits your VMOs and your quads. So you get on a treadmill on a big incline and you're getting a 90-degree squat and you'd walk backwards up the treadmill and you'd have to stay in that position for a minute.
Right.
Give it a go. It's tough.
I've done a ton of knee operations. So I've done a ton of knee rehab.
Yeah, similar. So we do
not as much, I'm sure.
Backwards bike. So you'd take the saddle off a bike. Similar theory, you get in a 90-degree squat and then you'd cycle backwards for like a minute and a half on a really high setting. Just your legs just blow up. So look, I worked really hard. I don't think I could have thrown any more at it, but it was just the damage to the cartilage that they do these microfracture operations and they're just not successful. They just don't really work for elite athletes. So I think everyone knew I was going to struggle to get back. But
what have you heard about the stem cell?
Yeah,
because I know they wouldn't have had it then necessarily.
Not so much there, but even now, I think that might work if you're just living a day-to-day life, and it help you walk to the shops. But to do what we need to do.
So you don't think you'd have been able to get back with modern advancements in?
I don't think so. I took a £2 coin size hole out of inside my cartilage, so I think I was always up against it.
How did you feel when you did realise, or when you were told, or what was it? Your choice? Was it a coach?
So,
what was the situation?
So the story was, if I'm totally honest, you probably kid yourself, but also you don't want to admit out loud that you're struggling. So I wouldn't want to say I was dishonest, but I had a great relationship with Bob Stewart, our physio, and Leon Lloyd, the Leicester player who came to Gloucester. Him and I were rehabbing together for a long time, and we started our sort of return to running protocols together. I just remember we were doing lengths of the field, and Bob was watching us in our first few sessions back, and we were like running next to each other. And I was like, I'm in agony. And he was like, I am as well. And then we'd get back and Bob would be like, oh, how's it feeling? We'd be like, yeah, good, actually. Yeah, really good, really good. And I think you'd be kidding yourself, but also obviously there's that sort of employment bit where you're like, oh, God.
Well, that's it. What are the financial implications of long-term injury?
So I did have an insurance policy. So I always knew that if I retired, I would get a lump sum, which helped give you a bit of security. And
not to say the figure, but how long does that keep you tided over for?
I mean, I insured myself for 3 years salary.
Right,
so
okay.
it wasn't, it was
right.
fairly significant. I mean, definitely helped me then make that move to Singapore, helped me invest in my new business. Yeah. So it was, So
and they also pushed a testimonial year forward. For
I had a one-off dinner. So I had a big dinner, which was brilliant. Really, obviously really grateful for the club for that. So I had like 350 people. Yeah. But it was, tough 18 months. So the story, how I saw the decision. So again, I was struggling with that sort of being honest about how I was really feeling. So I contacted the RPA, so Damien Hopley, Alex Anderson at the time, told them I was basically struggling and I wanted some independent advice. So I went up and saw a really well-known physio in London, and the RPA sort of, I think, financed it and organised it. And it was all a bit, kept it quite hush. And I went up on my day off, and I think I took some of my scans with me and things, but I didn't tell the club I was going. So went up on like a Thursday, went and had this appointment, showed him my scans, told him how I was feeling. He reviewed my knee, and my knee was always angry, so it was always like quite red and puffy. It was never looked, and I didn't have full extension, so I always had a slight bend in the knee. And so he reviewed it all, and he just said, "You're done." He just said.
Right, so it was the physio at that time.
So this is this well-known physio up in London, this independent advice. Yeah. And I was honest with him about how I felt. I basically told him that whenever I ran or even walked, I felt like I was being stabbed in the inside of my knee. He just said, "You're done, James. I'm really sorry, but it's not even like a 70-30. Right. He just said, "You're not going to play elite rugby again."
What did you say to him? Like, what did it feel? Was it relief?
So,
in that
if
moment,
I'm honest,
I'd
maybe a little bit of relief. It didn't really hit home that day. And I think I called my wife on the way home, told her. I don't think it still hit home. And then went in to see Bob Stewart the next day. So my physio, so great. He became a good, spending 3 hours a day with him. Became quite a good mate, came to our wedding and stuff. Just asked him if I could have a meeting, and that's the point it hit home. I sort of broke down on him. Told him, sorry mate, but I went up to London yesterday. I would need some independent advice. Really sorry I didn't tell you. They've told me to retire. So that was, And
so they used those words. They said you need to retire.
Yeah. And I think the club knew. I think they knew anyway.
Who was the coach at the time? Or
this was Dean Ryan.
This was Dean Ryan,
So this was at Hartpury in the physio room in the little side office. Told Bob, I couldn't really tell him. Couldn't really get my words out. And then walked up the hill, told Dean. And then I think maybe they said come back the next day. I came the next day and just stood up in the meeting room and told the boys.
Was that the hardest?
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of relief there because I'd been dealing with pain for a long, long time, just constant swelling. So my knee was just hot all the time because I was trying to put load through it to get back. And the knee was just angry, so I was just icing it constantly in pain, constantly on painkillers, constantly on anti-inflammatories.
But on that note, on the painkillers note, I know when some players do have an injury like this, they might find not just that helps a little bit, but they go too far with painkillers.
Because of the severity of the operation, I was in again, ACLs nowadays, you walk out, you have an ACL and you walk out that day. I was in hospital for 7 days.
Wow,
I was bedbound 7 days, and I had a morphine drip, and then I was sent home with very, very strong painkillers. But I'll be honest, I don't remember having any issues, but I was on very strong painkillers for a long time, because I was basically bedbound for basically 6 weeks.
Right.
And I was, I would have been on morphine type painkillers for that period, and morphine drip for a week. So probably looking back, I was probably on too much, but I don't.
But it never became a problem.
I don't remember having any issues.
Never became an issue. Again, you hear some of those players.
No, and actually, nowadays I would have been more aware of it. Maybe I didn't just. Maybe I did notice. Maybe I got a bit ill when I came out. But I don't remember there being an issue.
So you didn't kind of turn to drinking or
no. I think when I retired, you miss out on a lot, don't you, when you play professional rugby? So I think when I retired, I went up to London a bit more and went out a lot more with school friends.
You're still young.
Yeah, I was 26, and I missed out on all those sort of 21st birthday parties and things like that. So, but I'm not making a big thing of it. I don't think I've ever had an issue with drink. I like a party, but not a big issue. But I think in terms of the struggles after retiring, I think I moved to Singapore quite quickly after that. Got an opportunity.
Why was that? Was that Gloucester being claustrophobic?
I think I wanted to get away from Gloucester a bit. I don't think I wanted to hang around. I think I wanted to get away from rugby, and I found it hard to be around rugby. So, and I always loved travelling. I love seeing the world, and I got an opportunity to sort of coach Singapore rugby. I got this opportunity to do a sales role in financial services, which just wasn't for me. But it gave me the opportunity to
Is that just office bound?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that year I really struggled because I didn't enjoy that job. I was coaching, which I enjoyed, but I didn't enjoy that job.
How did you get into coaching the
Singapore? I just through the RPA again. They had a contact plus a mate.
So you said I'm heading out to Singapore.
Yeah,
and they said,
no, more that other opportunities, and I had a really good friend there called George Rippon.
Right.
He got me in with the SIU, so I sort of head coach of Singapore Rugby, which sounds quite grand, but I was probably paid about £500 a month, and I had this sort of other job. But I think I struggled that year looking back. Really miss rugby, really miss my mates. Sort of sitting in an office doing a job I really didn't like.
Your life's just completely changed.
Yeah, and I think looking back, I found that year very hard. I didn't really watch any rugby. I remember being sent a video. If you remember that great James Bailey try.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think one of the best tries at Gloucester ever. I didn't really do much. I'd sort of defended a bit on the line. Then we scored this 100-metre try. I think someone tagged me in that post. This is a year after I retired, and I'm in Singapore, and someone tags me in it. And again, it's one of those moments where it really hit home because I just didn't really watch much rugby. Someone tagged. I remember watching that and getting really quite emotional. Just watching that video.
I guess you lent on your wife for support around this time.
Jem was brilliant throughout. She was girlfriend at the time, then moved to Singapore, had a baby. Yeah, obviously been married a long time now. She was amazing throughout that. She nursed me. I mean, she literally nursed me. I had a potty by the bed. I couldn't go to the toilet for a week. Struggled to go to the toilet really for 6 weeks. So properly nursed me. She's brilliant. She's always been very focused. She's had a career herself, so she's a very driven, ambitious person. She runs marathons, and so she's definitely an inspiration to me as well, and very lucky to have her through that period.
I think Ben Ryan commented at the end of your career.
Did he?
He certainly did. He said, "The tragedy is we never saw the best of him. He could do things on the field that defied belief. The game is losing a great talent." So you could do things on the field that defied belief, and the first part of that, the tragedy is we never saw the best of him. Do you believe that?
How do you think? Well, I think you always have a bias, right? So there's always an element of ego and arrogance. I think to get to that level, when I was in that period, I love to say Joe Worsley, massive respect for him. Looking back, he probably was the better player than me. He got a lot more caps. But yeah, at that time, I probably believed I was better than him. And
You have to.
Yeah, you have to. So, I think what was frustrating is I think there was a period at the start of that season where I had all those back-to-back injuries. I think I won a Premiership Player of the Month award.
It was in September.
Yeah, in September. Yeah. And what I'd done is I had put on quite a bit of weight. So I got up to sort of 108 kilos. And I guess what I was trying to do was, I guess, fill those holes in my game that, I got feedback about. So, and I think in that month, I did feel like I was getting that balance between my attacking game, which I was known for, and maybe improving my defensive game. So yeah, with that bias and that arrogance, ego, there is a part of me that is disappointed I didn't get a really good crack at that season, the next season, in that sort of physical shape I was in when I put on maybe an extra 5 kilos. I'd learned a lot. I think I was more physical. So I guess the answer is...
So you feel like you were going in... you feel like you're going in the direction of being a better player?
Yeah, and maybe... And I guess...
26.
Yeah.
You've got 7 or 8 years as a back row still to potentially go.
Yeah, so look, I probably maybe still have flaws in my game, and there are a lot of good players out there, I guess. But yeah, part of me feels that if I'd had a really good crack at that year, the year after, then I'd like to think I could have got some more England caps. Some people might disagree, I don't know. But yeah.
I don't think there are many people that would disagree. I think, I can say it, on your behalf. I think most people would look at, your game pre-injuries or pre-retirement.
Yeah, but I think I'm a big believer, like, in my leadership style and running my business, and now in like honesty and honest conversation. So I think even back then, I was always understanding the fact that I probably did have flaws in my game. So, and I think I talked about looking out windows rather than mirrors. So
yeah.
I think I did always appreciate that. And I think I was on that journey at that time to try and improve in those areas. And I was desperate to play more games for England. I knew that probably to do that I had to fix parts of my game, but also while trying to be true to the reason I'd got there. So that ego in me probably thinks, I could have got a few more England caps, but who knows?
It wasn't to be. But you played 136 games for Gloucester. You scored. You started in '97. You scored 54 tries in 136 games. Now, I know I've come at you with a few stats today. This is quite a fun one. So 54 tries, 136 games. That's 0.4 tries a game. Sinbad, what do you reckon Okay, 274 appearances. Do you know how many tries he scored?
I mean, it's a much bigger
so we're
data
talking
spread,
130, what's that, 138 more games played. So played double the games that he played. How many tries do you reckon he scored?
God, mate,
Go on. So
I don't want to guess, because
he scored 120 tries in those 274 appearances. That's 0.44 tries a game. So yours is 0.4, his is 0.44.
Okay.
So tries per game, and given you were known for being a try scoring 8, right? Yeah. So pretty close.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I don't know what that does. How do you feel hearing those stats? What do you think?
I mean, look, I think if you asked Delali that, he'd say I got 100 caps. And,
of course,
I don't care about the score. And the reason I guess I didn't get 100 caps is probably, as I said before, areas of my game I needed to improve.
I just thought you might enjoy
different players. But I do remember Lawrence was an unbelievable attacking player, particularly earlier in his career. He played England. He won an Olympic gold or Commonwealth gold, playing 7. So and I think over time he put on weight, and he obviously had that really big knee injury. Yeah. But look, he's a hero of mine. Again, he's one of those guys in the squad when I broke in England squad in 2002. Looking at him, I'd been watching him at school, hero of mine. So I'm not going to say anything negative about Lawrence.
Of course not. No, I just thought it'd be, you're not like for like 8s. That's the main thing. You bring something. You bring very, very.
Yeah, and I guess I spent an awful lot of time hanging around on the wings. So probably helped my try ratio, but also credit to Dean Ryan, that sort of 3-pod rugby we played in that period.
Yeah.
basically the theory was you played more width to width, and basically your back rowers would actually sit on the touchline. So
okay.
it's brilliant. You'd be like a number 8. You get up from a scrum, and rather than running ruck to ruck, like Mike T just hitting sort of 40 rucks in a row, I just stand up, go and stand on the touchline and wait for the ball. It was brilliant. It's like a dream. So yeah, probably some of that's down to the way Gloucester played as well.
So talked a lot about Singapore.
Yeah.
After the injury, you head out there. As you say, you get involved with Singapore 15s and 7s, was it at the time?
Yeah. And I sort of coached throughout, even when I was building the business. So I kept
So you did all your badges over there, or had you already done them?
Yeah, I ended up did level 2 in England, then out there. I think the SIU supported me doing my level 3.
So were you thinking, I can make a good crack at being a coach?
I don't think I ever...
Or did you just want to stay close to the game?
I think once my business started taking off, I think that was... I probably, in some ways, enjoyed that more and felt there's more opportunity there. I think when you get away from high-level rugby, it's very hard to get back in. I think I knew coaching Singapore rugby 5 years, you ain't going to then turn up and get a Premiership job because the levels just... For me, it was more fun. It was also quite good for my business because we provided the physiotherapy for all the Premiership rugby teams around Singapore. It was like a big part of our business model. So staying in rugby was quite
useful.
It's quite useful, but also I loved it. Like I coached the Wanderers.
You were working in that in the desk job, the office job. How did you then get from that to your business? And so that was UFit.
Yeah.
Talk to me about UFit.
So Dean Ryan was the first person to talk about purpose, and I hadn't heard it really spoken about before, but he brought it in that era, and we talked about beyond the expected. So we'd always behave and train and play beyond the expected, and then I moved to Singapore, sort of did a bit of this coaching, and then had this sort of job which I was very grateful for the opportunity, but just wasn't for me, and I just think that's that purpose bit, because I just didn't know why I was turning up to work every day. I was miserable, to be honest. I wasn't happy, wasn't enjoying it. I knew within 5 minutes of sitting at that desk, this wasn't me. So over that year, I started transitioning, and I had some mates who lived locally, who I became friendly with locally, and I just started training them in my back garden. We'd just train together. So I wasn't charging
just strength and conditioning.
First few months, it was just like 2 mates. So I had some kettlebells, and we'd just train the garden, kettlebell swings, press ups. And we'd go and sprint up this hill that was around the corner, and then it started growing. And then they started bringing mates, and then they started bringing mates.
How was your knee in and around that training?
So I think it's interesting. Yes, not great, but it's about load. And I think I was trying to come back to be a professional rugby player, so you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
So back then it was like I had a desk job, and I'd do 3 circuit sessions a week, and so the load's much less. So actually you could sort of manage it a bit better, because I was just doing 3 things a week rather than 10 or 15. So it's all about load when you're coming back from injuries like that. So before I knew it, I sort of had this boot camp, and then
so you didn't intend to build.
No, and I started doing, and I'd done a nutrition qualification, so I started writing some little nutrition plans for people, and then I started charging, because there were literally people turning up to these sessions that I didn't even know. So I started, I think, charging cash.
Do you remember how much?
Oh, it's like $10. It was like £5. But, we'd start getting 10, 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
And then I met this Kiwi guy who was running a very similar business. So he had an actual big boot camp business, really successful around Singapore. And I had started doing the nutrition work, and I had this like very small boot camp with the mates. And then him and I met over a number of coffees, and then we decided to open a personal training studio. So we hired a space in Chinatown, which is right next to the CBD. So surrounded by skyscrapers, and just to the left of that, or just beside that, all these small Chinese shop houses. And we put some money down on a lease, 3 months up front, bought the equipment, and just built this sort of quite small but niche personal training studio. And as I said, this sort of purpose piece, I was just so much happier training these people, doing the nutrition plans. Some of the people I did the nutrition plans for had amazing results. There was a guy that lost like 20 kilos. Wow. That was an amazing feeling. And then I was like, well, this is a sort of reason to go to work. It's a reason to get out of bed, and which I sort of felt like I'd missed for a year. And it was quite a big financial risk. taking a space in the middle of the Singapore CBD wasn't cheap.
Did you take a kind of mid to high level priced stance? Like, what was your?
Yeah, so we wanted to be niche, and we had to understand very early what our sort of position in the market was, and we just felt there was this massive opportunity, because while there were some amazing gyms in Singapore, people are throwing a lot of money at. For us, the quality of the people was very poor, whereas there were a lot of very high net worth individuals, very serious people in Singapore. Every bank, every hedge fund, every insurance company, shipbroking company in the world are in Singapore in this sort of square mile.
Right.
So we felt there was this huge opportunity if we get the right people, really high quality people.
So it was all about the trainers. It was all about
So it was all about the people. It was about the quality of the trainers we brought in. We started a physio business, about the quality of the physios we brought in. And we would just talk about the quality of our people. We'd celebrate the quality of our people. We'd talk about results. We'd celebrate results. And, there were some gyms top of these skyscrapers, millions and millions of dollars. We had this sort of little niche, sort of sweaty.
What kind of talk to me about the kit? What sort of stuff did you have in
We
there?
did not spend a lot of money, really basic stuff. But then as we started expanding, we took the space next door, and then we took another space a few miles away, and then another space in CBD, and then we started expanding and opening.
That's four. So how big did it get?
So at the point I sort of left Singapore, I think we had 10 locations around Singapore.
And you own? Are you?
I was either I had a couple of some partners. So I was one of three basically.
Right. Okay. So and was it an equitable split? Was it?
I think I had 40% or something like
okay.
that. So and we had some other smaller investors. And look, I think the lesson I'd always take from it is I was by no means a business expert. I was by no means the best personal trainer in the world. Certainly wasn't a physiotherapist. But I think I just saw an opportunity, and I think the thing we did well is we just saw that opportunity and we went for it. I think it would have been quite easy to go, let's do it in a year. Maybe I should do some more qualifications.
Yeah.
What do I know?
So it's always too easy to put it away again, to push it off.
And I think if I had, because the opportunity was then, that if you're opening gyms now in Singapore, it's much more challenging. Really happy to be honest about that. Yeah. I think in life you need a little bit of luck, and I think we got.
And you just had less. Arguably you just had some, particularly bad luck.
Yeah, some bad luck. But off the back of that, I'd got some insurance money that probably allowed me to move to Singapore and make a decision.
I always say to people, it's like we're playing Monopoly every day, and you'll land on the shit ones, you'll land on the great ones, and ideally you always pass go. And you've definitely landed on
and I think
a few squares you wouldn't want to be.
Yeah, and I think I talk about resilience. I think adaptability actually in many ways, because moved to Singapore, did a job I didn't really like, adapted, found something I was passionate about. There was a risk to it. I was certainly not going to be paid much money for the first year or two. It's my wife again was brilliant. She's always had a great career, and we've supported each other during different times.
How was it having kids at that time?
Yeah, well, Singapore's a brilliant place to have kids.
Why?
Quite easy. Well, the healthcare is amazing. Right. Everything's just quite easy. It's a lovely lifestyle. Kids grew up around the pool. They were strong swimmers. You by the pool every weekend.
How old are they now, by the way?
15, 13, 10.
Right.
And two of them were born in Singapore, one just before we left.
Right.
So they've got sort of Singapore in their passports. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people ask me about my, regrets and about rugby. I think on balance, I wouldn't change anything, because the injury at that time, I think I was very injury prone anyway. The reality is, would I have been one of these guys that played into my 30s? Probably not.
So it could have been 2 months later.
Yeah, it could have been a year later. And actually,
2 years later.
The injury at that point, because we hadn't really started having kids, we were flexible and we had the opportunity to move to Singapore. And I think that was probably the best thing we ever did. My wife and I was moved to Singapore, just in terms of life experience, see the world. We did an awful lot of traveling. I started this business, which...
you won a business award for that as well, Singapore.
Expat Entrepreneurial award. Yeah, and look, as I said, you need a little bit of luck. I think we went for it at the right time. Certainly made some mistakes along the way. Learned a lot. I think big thing for me was mentors. I think we had some amazing people in our business in terms of our staff, but also the people, the the paying
clientele as
customers
well.
coming in.
Yeah.
You're talking about CEOs of banks, CEOs of hedge funds. So I had a couple of people within that I'd lean on. I'd say, "Oh, can I take you for a coffee?" They'd actually probably end up buying it anyway. But and I really benefited from some of those people within the business in the early days, just giving me free advice, and because I didn't know anything really about accounting. But I essentially became the CEO, and you need to become a bit
working
of
out as you go along.
jack of all trades. So learning a lot about accounting.
Yep.
You don't need to know everything, but you need a decent understanding. So accounting, marketing. We started marketing pretty well. We started that sort of using that really high quality imagery quite early, celebrating our staff, celebrating our clients' success. So
It's good branding as well.
Yeah,
It's really, it's really good branding.
Yeah, we went through some rebrands over the years.
Yeah.
And,
I think what I found is, and I don't know if you'd agree, is the second you're honest about your capabilities and the lack thereof, and especially if you've got the right people that you're talking to, and I've had it with clients, of my agencies, people are so supportive the second they're like, "Oh, okay, I can help you." It's just if you put up a front and you pretend to be the best at everything all of the time, people don't want to support you. They don't want to help you.
Yeah, and I'd say that I've got a lot of weaknesses. I think that's one of my strengths is knowing what I'm good at and what I'm not. And I think being, again, that honesty piece, like understanding what you're good at and where you need support for sure. So
where does that for you? Where does that philosophy come from? Is there something that
I think I think learning from mistakes. I think maybe in my past when I first started the business, when things went wrong and a lot of things did go wrong, I'd probably point at other people,
right?
And I can't remember the point or where I learned, but I think probably one of those mentors. Like I think you need to own everything that happens to you. And I think particularly when you're in a leadership role, sort of CEO or leading a business, I think the worst thing you can ever do is point at the people below you in terms of mistakes being made. I think because essentially you're responsible for everything.
It's all on you. Like your buck stops with you.
Yeah. So I think when the people in your organisation see you take responsibility, I think you get a lot of credibility, even if you have made a mistake. I think.
And likewise, I say to my team, and you doubtless said to yours, if you make a mistake, just own it and let's learn.
Yeah. And I think when they see that, you get credibility, even if you have made that mistake. So
what happened to that business? Is it still in existence? Did you sell?
So I sold the majority of my shares, but kept a bit, and then I stayed on the board for 5 years, still operating, still doing great things. Yeah. We've built an amazing corporate business, so we run all the wellness for LinkedIn in Asia, across Asia, so Singapore, Hong Kong.
Was that India. A life-changing sale of your?
It's definitely had a big impact on our family. So came home and bought a house, and still a long way to go. And having 3 kids, you never have as much money as you think you do. I think
that's when I met you. Was 2019.
Just moved back. Yeah.
You just moved back. You hadn't long moved back, and so I came into Huddle. Your gym at Chatham Tigers.
Yeah, so I've opened a great little gym in Cheltenham called the Huddle. We just do personal training, small group training. Got a great little team. Craig Rutherford, local boy who
I do know Craig,
manages it. He's doing a great job. So I'm really proud of it.
Craig's kind of done similar to what you've done.
He worked for me in Singapore.
Yeah, so there's a lot of the travelling, a lot of the I know he's quite a philosophical guy as well.
Yeah, great guy.
So
I'm excited about him.
I said to him 2 days ago, it's just wonderful to see him doing well. And I'll always celebrate anybody and everybody's success. And I think sometimes
he's a great guy, really honest. Very passionate.
Very very good trainer.
Passionate about helping his clients.
Yeah.
So great little business. So it's nice to be doing that.
When you say little business, what's your ambition?
I'd love to grow. I think again, I spoke to it earlier. I think there's
tough time.
You need a bit of luck. So the time, we got our timing really right in Singapore. I think the market's quite crowded, so you have to find again where's your fit in the market. So again, it's a challenge. We're just trying to be quite holistic in terms of offering that personal training, small group training. There's a lot of these 24-hour gyms now, so we can't compete with those.
And do you want to?
No,
that's the thing.
So again, it's about the quality.
You touched on quality of people.
Yeah.
You've been in 24-hour gyms, presumably. I used to work in the gym. That's I was a gym instructor, then PT, and all those things, class instructor, and whatnot. You get in there, And you go into one of these places, and they don't even. There's not a staff member to talk to. No. There's.
But that's their model. They just
of course it is.
Yeah. So we have to differentiate ourselves, and Craig's very good at that. So
yeah, fantastic.
But obviously, I've got this other role, Gloucester-Hartpury.
So you came back and you got involved with Hartpury straight away, was it?
Yeah. So Mark Cornwall, Johnny Goodridge were there. They said I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had a consultancy role with my business, so I just ended up doing some coaching very part-time at Hartpury.
Yep. Was that the men's and women's?
Men's to start with, and then it just evolved. Got asked if I'd help with the women's team.
That was as a forwards coach?
Yeah, forwards coach, did some D. Good fun. I think I never really thought I was going to be a full-time coach. I do enjoy the business.
So how many days a week were you doing that?
I think to start with a couple of mornings, and then it just evolved over time.
We talk about timing because you came in with Gloucester-Hartpury, the women's team, and now you're CEO of Gloucester-Hartpury.
Yeah,
just won Premier 15s last year.
Yeah,
phenomenal team. That Kingsholm day, that day last year was incredible. Packed Kingsholm.
Yeah,
best attendance for a women's rugby match.
Women's club game.
A women's club game. Yeah.
I think world record for a club game, I believe. It might have been overtaken now.
So do you think you've come into women's rugby at a time when it's really on the ascendancy?
Yeah, look, it's obviously, again, a bit about timing, but genuinely, I loved coaching them. I never thought I was the best coach in the world, but I had a passion for the group because there's some absolute superstars in there. They work so hard. You're Natasha Hunt, you're Zoe Allcroft, Rachel Lund, Tatiana Hurd. These girls are just superstars, but we just probably didn't have the squad there to really compete. So we're sort of a mid-table team. But I could see what it meant to them. These girls are just brilliant professionals, great players, world-class players. And I just felt back then that I could maybe help a bit on the commercial side. So I sort of pitched to Hartpury to help the side commercially. So I started doing some sponsorship deals.
What was that? You going out to businesses?
Yeah, and then with that money, we could then invest in the program, invest in better players. And then I was part of a process where I sort of pitched to Gloucester Rugby to have a stronger relationship, have a formal JV, and basically for both organisations, Hartpury and Gloucester, to invest a bit more. And we felt that actually with a relatively small amount of investment, where this team already was, there was huge. So
did you feel like it was kind of Gloucester in name, not in partnership?
Yeah, it was a bit of that. It was a bit of Gloucester, come on, there's so much we could do here. There's so much opportunity, and no one disagreed with me. That was the thing. It was like, Alex Brown is CEO now. It's like, that's the right thing to do. They 100% saw the opportunity and agreed with me. It wasn't like I was pulling teeth. So everyone's been rowing in the right direction, the same direction.
Those sponsorship conversations you had, what were you doing? Just going to big corporates?
And they were harder back then because the team was less high profile.
Well, that's it. You're knocking on doors and saying, chuck some money into women's rugby without the eyeballs that necessarily they would
there's probably a bit
prefer.
more then about CSR.
Yes.
Now there's probably a bit where it's a bit of CSR and a return on investment in terms of eyeballs on the game. There's a big TNT deal. We had 10,000 people at the final. So I think that day, obviously I feel like I missed out a bit on rugby end of my career, but seeing the players, the staff, how hard everyone worked over a number of years, because it wasn't always easy for us. We were finishing 5th every year. Every year we were losing to Sarries and Quins by like a point, just missing out. So to see... to win that final at Twickenham in front of that crowd, with the sun out, and see how happy our players were and our staff were after all the hard work that got in, that was right up there for me in terms of highlights of my career. It was really
It's funny
special.
how these things come back around. I bet when you were sat in that office in Singapore, you never thought that you'd be stood back at Kingsholm with a winning Gloucester team.
No, absolutely not. And I wouldn't have thought about women's rugby but I genuinely feel privileged I'm CEO, so essentially lead the organisation.
How did you become? Was it with
so over time with the sort of with the coaching, and then I had this sort of commercial role for Gloucester-Hartpury. Then I'd sort of written this white paper around how the two organisations could invest a bit more in the team. And then off the back of that, we formally formed this joint venture. So a lot of work went into that, a lot of legal work to set that up. And then obviously with the bigger investment, it was a more serious thing. So they wanted a CEO, and obviously I was asked to apply for that role and got it. But yeah, I feel really privileged to lead that group of players and staff. They're awesome, world class.
What do you think the world of women's rugby looks like in the future? In the near future.
It's so exciting. The World Cup next year. They sold 63,000 tickets last year for the France game at Twickenham.
That was incredible as well.
I've no doubt they'll sell out Twickenham next year for the World Cup. There's a lot of investment going into community, and we talk about our purpose a lot. So our purpose at Gloucester-Hartpury is to inspire the next generation of young female athletes in our community. And if you were at that game, which I think you were,
I was. Yeah, I took my kids.
And you noticed the crowd is quite different, the audience is quite different.
It was really very different. It was a lot more family and young.
Family and young, and you can basically go as a family. You go as a family of four for 20 quid.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
20 quid for a family of four. 30 quid. Great day out. Girls play great rugby. The ball play time's really high.
It was really high. That's the thing that I guess my introduction to women's rugby was years ago. Watched it over the years. Maggie, Alfonsi, and people like that over the years. But the ball in play time is something that you do notice is significantly higher. Why is that?
I think, look, first and foremost, girls are really skillful. I think the skill level's gone through the roof over the last few years. Honestly, the players probably don't obviously kick the ball as far as the men. So there's this element.
There's a tiny bit more territorial.
Well, there's an element of, actually, if you're not, if you're not stern for South Africa, who punts the ball 70 metres away, if you're not kicking the ball that far, there's maybe less benefit of kicking the ball away. Like, keep the ball, play rugby, and try and make your
that makes sense.
Try and make your 30, 40 metres by keeping the ball alive. Now, obviously, Gloucester-Hartpury do play a fairly pragmatic game. We do play a territorial game. We've got two of the best kickers in the world at 9 and 10. But we do try and entertain. The girls call themselves a circus, so we try and entertain our fans. And I think they do that, and I think the impact they've had on our community is massive over the last year or two. I remember just before the final, we won the semi, and then the next week we were front and back page of the Citizen. And obviously I grew up, I was regularly on the back page of the Citizen as a male player, but to see the girls on the front and back page of the Citizen, I remember I took photos and I put it on our sort of Teams group, and I said, this is the impact you're having, because this would just not have happened 2-3 years ago. Like, to be front and back page of the local newspaper, and they were basically saying, girls have done it, get to the final. Yeah, that was
incredible. It really was.
One of those really special moments,
and a really special moment for the city as well, I think.
Yeah, and I've argued, like, these girls are your team; they're the city's team. They a lot of them, Mo Hunt, Ellie Rugman. They grew up Forrester Dean. The Gloucester girls are really proud to play for this city. So to get that sort of 10,000 attendance at the final was a surprise. Like, we hoped, but probably it was better than we hoped. And it was just a fantastic day.
Can you ever see a marquee kind of £1 million a year female player?
So I know in Australia, I think the rugby league and the NRL women, I think the budgets are getting much, much bigger. I know as CEO of Gloucester-Hartpury that our budgets have dramatically increased over the last 2 or 3 years.
Is that public?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously we'll be a limited company, so I think that we have minimum operating standards. So
what's the typical budget for a squad?
So I think a lot of these women's teams will be up towards £1 million a year now. So
spread across how many players in the squad?
800. So that's not salary cap. So the salary cap. The salary cap right now is 190. Right. So it's relatively small, but in terms of budget for physios, coaches, I think teams will be, because you have to hit these minimum operating standards. Yeah. So I think teams will be around the sort of 800k £1 million mark at the moment.
In terms of, but in total,
and I think
budget.
my goal is, like, while I'd absolutely love these players to match what the boys earn. Yeah. I think they deserve it, but obviously there's a reality here in terms of TV deals, number of people at games. So we're not there yet, and we have to be pragmatic. But
there's a lot to celebrate.
We have to be sustainable. But my goal as CEO, and we're not quite there yet, is I'd love the program to be the same standard as the boys. So the opportunity, the S&C, the medical, the quality of facilities, the kit, the nutrition, the food they get after training. So my goal, and I don't think we're a million miles off, but we've got a way to go. I'd love the programs to be the same.
What tips you to that point? What do you need to get to that point?
Well, are you looking at sponsorship deals? Look, we need more people attending to drive revenues. We need more sponsorship deals.
What does a sponsorship deal look like at this level?
I don't mind being open about it. So our sponsorship now is between sort of 5,000 and 6,000, and then we wear the same match kit as the boys. So we have sponsorship deals between 5,000-6,000 and 45,000 and everything in between. So and look, the response from the city's been brilliant. We've got some brilliant sponsors in the community, particularly after we won the final. That obviously makes conversations a little bit easier.
Winning makes everything
with
easier.
The profile. So look, we're not there yet, but like for example, we don't feed the players as much as I'd like. I'd love to be able to give them really great nutritious food after every session.
They train in Hartpury, or
so we split between Kingsholm and Hartpury, and the facilities at both are absolutely world class. So, as I said, the program has come a long, long way, and I'm obviously driven to deliver that sort of equity in the program. We're not quite there with salaries yet, but hopefully that can keep.
What's an average salary?
Well, look, I mean,
if you just said 190,
you can work out. So right now it's 190, and you're probably paying 30 players.
Yeah. So there are a lot of these players that are also doing other things to earn.
Yeah. Money. So actually, the majority of the girls, the senior girls who are in international squads, earn more of their money from central contracts. So
got it.
Red Roses, Wales, Ireland are starting to look at more central contracts. Scotland as well, I think, have 25 central contracts. England have 35, 40, I think.
Okay.
Peak girls contracted.
And how many of the Gloucester-Hartpury players?
We've come so far. I remember a couple of years ago, I think we had a couple of injuries, but Zoe Allcroft, who's one of our co-captains, I think one Six Nations was maybe the only player going over to Red Roses.
Right.
I think we had sort of 8 core girls and then 2 young players who got invited to train. So we had something like 10 go and train.
That was squad of 30.
It was a wider squad, so maybe it's 40, but we had something like 10 girls.
And
that's actually similar. We had similar numbers training when we were sort of doing well in 03. I think we had about 8-10 boys regularly going into England camp.
Yeah.
So it's a good sign.
Yeah.
And then 12 Welsh, 2 Irish, 2 Spanish.
12 Welsh, and they're centrally contracted as well?
Yeah, I think it's
12.
Okay,
so do you have are the majority of the players full-time?
We still have a lot of dual career players who are really important to our program, who have jobs. They're physios and teachers and police women. So obviously we still really reliant on them. But there are each year more and more will be sort of full-time-ish. And again, salaries don't match the boys, but they are full-time. Some of them are still studying at Hartpury, and they'll dip into our daytime sessions.
Lessons from the professionalisation of rugby in 95 through to, I guess, when you started playing, are there lessons from them that are both either applicable or avoidable now in the women's game?
I think what the league have done well is I think they have learned some of the lessons, but I think what's really important is I don't think it's helpful to necessarily talk about it. I think the men's game's come a long way. They obviously went through that transition from amateur to professional. Yeah. I think it was challenging.
Where there still were dual career players at a certain point, right? So
and I think what we've done, I sit on the remuneration committee, and we have regular commercial calls. So like we're trying to grow in a really sustainable way. I'm sit on this committee that chooses what the salary cap will be and how we remunerate players, and doing things like sitting education outside of the cap, sitting apprenticeships outside the cap, sitting some rent agreement for some players outside the cap. So really trying to support the players, but while growing in a sustainable way. So I think that's that key. I guess the key lesson is that those revenues need to be there. We can't be growing above our revenues. It needs to be sustainable.
What does success look like in the next couple of years for women's rugby to you?
Well, for Gloucester-Hartpury, we're really ambitious. I said we want to inspire our community. We want to try and finish top 2 every year, because when you finish top 2, you get home semi, and if you get home semi, really increases your chances of winning that and getting to a final. So look, we happy to say we're a team that want to finish top 2 in the league every year. What we hope is obviously with the World Cup next year, we get a massive bump in awareness and attendances and sponsorship. You know, we're hoping those games across the World Cup next year sell out.
Is Kingsholm hosting?
They're not actually, unfortunately, but I think Bristol are. Yeah. Obviously, Kingsholm is just for like World Cup attendance capacity 16,000. So they've given a lot of the games to football stadiums.
Right. Okay.
So actually, Sunderland, Brighton.
Okay.
So they try and get like 30, 40,000 people to these games. Yeah. So it's really exciting times, and hopefully that can have a knock-on effect in terms of participation in the community. A lot of money is going to community initiatives pre-World Cup to try and get numbers into the game, into watching games.
Are there the same concerns in the women's game as there are? And I'd love to speak to to Mo and to players like that. Are there the same CTE type concerns? The same head injury concerns in the women's game as there are in the men's game?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think it's blighting it in a similar way?
Yeah, but it's just about, I guess, here this following the science post-COVID. But yeah, so obviously we're massively conscious of it. We have very strict protocols around concussion now. The rugby's in a very different place.
You've seen those gum shields? I'm sure you have.
Yes, the girls all have them.
Yeah, they all have them.
The girls have them.
The impact gum shields.
Yeah,
incredible.
We run that. We share the data. Good.
But I love the sport. I hear parents that even played the sport that talk about how I wouldn't have my child play rugby. And, I think we need to answer those questions and more.
It's about those honest conversations. I think understanding the science, putting protocols in place, tackle technique. Yeah. There's a lot around scrum as well.
It's a lot different. So I started playing in 99 when I was 11. And it's a lot different now back to, versus what it was like then versus what it was like when you only a few years prior had probably started playing. I
think the people have always done the best for the players with the knowledge and the information they have. I think obviously have been some issues with concussion, but hopefully the game's moving in the right direction.
A lot of your peers were possibly in that,
that
group
we
of
played,
players.
I guess, in that worst era where it got hugely physical, everyone got very big, but the tackle high was very high. We were taught, we were coached to tackle fairly high. And protocols weren't quite what they are today, but
you were taught to tackle that high, is that like a ball dislodging?
Well, we obviously
technique thing.
and obviously you shore up the ball and
stop the offload.
There's obviously a heavy rugby league influence.
Best coach you've ever played for?
God, no, I probably would say Dean. I think.
Did it help that he was a back rower as well?
Yeah. Dean was incredibly innovative. I think he came up with this 3-pod system. I think he really thought outside the box. So Ben Ryan I was coached by as well, but only at sort of schoolboy level. Quite similar actually, very innovative. Dean obviously was challenging. He would definitely challenge you, challenge me a hell of a lot, challenge you on bits if you weren't playing well. Certainly a hard taskmaster, but I think his knowledge of the game, his understanding, the way he looked at it, the way he evolved the game, that 3-pod system we played that was very successful for a couple of years, suited my game. So really enjoyed it. I guess it coincides with sort of my favourite period of my career. So I would say Dean, I think.
What was the biggest bollocking you ever got from a coach?
That would definitely be Dean as well. There were none, probably every Monday for about 4 or 5 years.
What would he get on with you about?
Dean for a while had an office above our gym over on the Lions Den, the other side. Yeah. So we used to train in there, and then there was offices upstairs, and most Mondays there'd be a sort of knock on the glass pane, and you'd look up, and he'd just point at me and go, and you'd go up, and he'd have his laptop with your clips.
Right.
And, obviously, where I played, I guess I was quite high risk, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I took some risks and made some mistakes along the way, so there were definitely some bollockings in there over the years.
Any memorable ones?
I do just remember. I don't remember ever getting bollocking for like behaviour or anything like that, or
it would all just
drinking. It was always bad decisions on the pitch. I remember we played Paris in the Heineken Cup. And I think it was my job. If they threw to the back of the line out, it was my job to sack. So we decided that game to sack their maul. And they threw to the back of the line, but it was like 55 metres out. And I missed it. I forgot, or I was being dopey, or I just missed the sacking. And they actually, I think from memory, they drove us like 55 metres.
I don't remember, but brilliant.
And Dean is something along the lines as, that's why you're not playing for England at the moment.
Cheers,
I was like, they drove us 55 metres, but I remember real bollocking after that incident. And it's always, in those days, I imagine it's different now, but it was always in front of the whole squad. So it's Monday, 40 lads in the room, video clips, and if Dean wasn't happy, you knew about it.
I guess you played your whole career at Gloucester, after Bicester.
Yeah.
So you've only ever played for 2 clubs.
Mighty Bicester and Gloucester.
And Gloucester. What does it mean to you to have only been?
Yeah, I think special. I had a couple of opportunities over the years, like other clubs, but I always just felt home here. Obviously, I think Kingsholm's such a special place. Everyone talks about it, but in many ways, my favourite memories are at Kingsholm rather than, say, Twickenham, even though I had some good days at Twickenham, just because the atmosphere, it almost feels like there's more people there. I had a great group of mates. We were having success, probably not quite achieving what we would have liked, but always felt like we were there or thereabouts. So I never seriously considered leaving. And
were you offered anything big?
I don't know about money-wise, but I had some approaches from very serious, some high up the league teams I sort of semi-considered, but
Did any kind of have you considering it harder than others?
Look, I think I did have there was a conversation with Wasps at one point, and obviously I think they were doing good things, but it's around that sort of 03, 04, I think. So Gloucester were right there or thereabouts, and all my best mates played for Gloucester, and looking back, Wasps obviously went on to achieve a lot. So, but I don't have regrets. I love playing this club. I'm proud of the fact I only play for one club. As I said, I'm still very close to a lot of the guys I played with. So, nice. No regrets.
On that note, then, best forward you've ever played with?
It would be. I said, very lucky to play behind the pack I played against. So it would be Vix or Trev. So Trev Woodman or Phil Vickery. Don't know if I could pick between those two. I mean, Vix obviously had a longer, amazing career. I think there was a period around that World Cup where Trev was unbelievable.
Not underrated because he was rated highly, but even better than that.
Yeah, probably, again, people maybe didn't see the best of him because I think the best rugby he ever played was after that World Cup. He came back, and I remember, I think there were 2 or 3 weeks, Premiership weeks in a row, where he'd scored like winning tries from like 40 metres, and he was sort of breaking the line and stepping the fullback. And Trev was an unbelievable athlete. So Trev and Vix hard
to pick between them.
Can't separate them.
What about favourite back you played with? Best back you played with?
I hate to do it, but it probably has to be Sinbad, doesn't it? Jason, I played a couple of. I think Jason was my captain when I got those caps for England. Right. So Jason Robinson, obviously.
If we're talking England,
hit.
Okay.
But I think Sinbad just. The thing people don't realise about Sinbad, they talk about all those magical moments, but his consistency, he never made a mistake. I don't think people quite realise how good his skill set was. Like his passing, his pass catch. If you went through videos, you wouldn't find, he wouldn't drop the ball. He'd never drop the ball. He'd never make a poor pass. Like all his passes were spot on. So he's actually like this sort of, everyone talks about this amazing, gifted attacking player. But actually, he was so consistent. He would have never been dropped for Gloucester, which is a hell of a thing. Gloucester's the top team. I guarantee in that 15-year period, there wouldn't be one game where he wouldn't have been first name on the team sheet. And that was just his consistency. So him as a player, but I think people probably undervalue, underrate his total game. Like he was unbelievable.
I'm going to make you do it between the three of them. Pick the best.
I guess just because of what he achieved, you have to go Vix. like some of his moments, was it Olivia Mann? He absolutely smashed. His ball carrying, his defence. Look, I was very lucky. I played with a lot of amazing players, but I think what Vic's achieved and like the level he played at when he was at his best and when he wasn't, he obviously picked up a lot of injuries over the years, but he was unbelievable.
Who's the hardest player you've ever played with?
So, Andy Hazel, just fearless. For his size, like unbelievable athlete, but just absolutely fearless. Yeah, and actually, so Alex Brown, people often joke he's the hardest posh bloke you'll ever meet. Really? Brownie, so I think Brownie, he broke I can't imagine it's been broken, but he broke the record for consecutive Premiership games and also without coming off. So I think he went 88 games. So he started 88 Premiership games in a row without coming off 1 minute.
That's incredible.
So that's basically 4 seasons without missing a minute.
That's ridiculous.
And he used to smash people. Like his defense.
I mean, he didn't take a backward step.
He was his defense was one of the best second rows you'll ever see. So yeah, very hard, particularly for a posh bloke. He's nearly as posh as me.
On that note, did you play with Jim Hamilton then? Was he your era? Or was
I
he
played
just a bit
England
after?
21s with Jim.
Oh,
I think he joined the club after me.
Yeah, okay.
I'd never give him credit for anything. I wouldn't call him hardest bloke.
No?
I love great lad Jim.
Yeah.
And well.
Is it true he's got the England rose tattooed?
He did, yeah.
He
so
did.
When we played
He did?
he had it, but he had it covered up.
Oh, he's had it covered
So
up.
that's why, yeah. So when we played England 21s, he had like a England rose on his arm, and then
I would have done the exact same thing.
As soon as he got picked for Scotland, it was all like huge arm sleeve tattoos, and really like pleased for him what he's achieved.
He's doing fantastic things. Yeah,
amazing.
It's really
he's
good to see.
He's actually people who are good at what they do. I think they make it look easy, and I think Jim is very good at what he does. He's very good at the podcast stuff, the commentating, and he makes it look quite easy just because I think he's very likeable. He's good fun. He's a likeable bloke, but I think he speaks really well. He knows rugby. He's obviously a really good player for Gloucester, but I think we just missed each other, so I only played with him for England 21s.
What's your favourite sporting memory?
We had that, obviously the European final, scored a try. But I think just in terms of what it meant to the community, what it meant to us as a team was that 03 Cup.
Yeah, the Powergen Cup.
Just, I think the city...
I was there.
So. Yeah. City had probably been starved of success for a while.
Yeah.
I think Full House was at 75,000 at King's End. The noise was unbelievable. I remember Delalio and Guska were commentating. You watch it back, and they couldn't actually speak, and they went back to the studio because they couldn't hear because of the noise on the touchline.
I think I was very spoiled to come into supporting a Gloucester team that had you lot in it.
Yeah,
and then I think there were a few years where it wasn't quite as successful.
Yeah, certainly had some ups and downs. So I'd say 03, and actually the girls winning the final in June was really special. Just after a lot of hard work, and they deserve that. So I'd pick that right up there. Those two moments.
So one playing, one involved.
One playing, one just CEO, not probably really doing very much, but just
well, you've been a part of. You get to be part of their success in bringing the sponsorship to the fore, bringing.
And I help with some of the recruitment and stuff. But I think I just think for me, like leadership philosophy, I don't think leaders and organisations should take credit because it was the coaches, it was the players on the pitch. I think you have to take responsibility when things go badly, but I would definitely not want to take any credit for that win, but it was great to be part of it.
That's wonderful. And what's your favourite off-field memory with your teammates?
I think, like I touched on a moment ago, is those moments in the change rooms. Like there's photos actually of, they have all those old traditional baths at Twickenham, so all single.
Yeah.
And there's loads of photos of us in those baths after winning the Powergen Cup. Again, I just think it is those moments. It's those moments in the change room. It's like relief as well because it's a big final, a lot of pressure, 75,000 people, like getting the change room with your mates, just having a beer. That for me, you can't. They're the memories I won't forget.
Any escapades? Ow.
I'm not going to do that.
Good man.
Loads.
Good man. I'm glad that you
Loads,
didn't.
but I'm not going anywhere
Good.
near
Well
it.
done. I'm glad. Tried to
I'm not
lead you
going
down
to
a
do a Jim
path.
Hamilton and stitch everyone up. No, I didn't come prepared for stories.
No, it's all good.
No, a lot of very funny moments, but
Who's the funniest player in the team?
we had some big characters. Chris Forty, like Mark Cornwall, Leon Lloyd, very funny guy. Actually, can you edit that out? Don't give him credit for that, but yeah, like those old boys, like those boys who've gone through the amateur era, like Andy Deacon, Chris Forty, Mark Cornwall. I remember we had a great mate of mine who joined the club called Chris's brother, James Parks, really good mate of mine. He was the ex to S&C for years after rugby, but he'll be honest, like he was always like our third choice hooker. So he went from around a few clubs. He's always sort of the third choice hooker, but he was like brilliant professional, brilliant lad. So he always got contracts just because he was a great team player, good rugby player.
Yeah.
And I do remember we had like our first block of pre-season. It's a really tough block, 4 weeks, train hard. And then we all went for a beer in Montpellier. So this would be like August. So we're standing on that strip in Montpellier having a beer. And we were sort of youngish, so we're sort of stood in a group of the youngish boys. And I think Mark Cornwall walked past us to go to the toilet. And this new lad was obviously trying to be keen, trying to impress. So we all had pints of beer, and Parksy, it's the middle of the afternoon, he had a pint of water. And Mark Cornwall just walked past, double took, stopped, looked at him and went, "What's that, mate?" He didn't even use his name. He probably didn't even know his name. He went, "What's that, mate?" He went, "Water." He just looked at him, shook his head and went, "You're not going to fit in here," and walked off. Brilliant. Absolute savage. But that was, we had some good fun, and that was the sort of mentality at Gloucester in that period. Like we did train really hard, but we definitely went out and had a beer as well.
Wonderful. You got named in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, there's dinner on Saturday actually.
Yeah. What did that mean to you?
It did mean, I'm not going to lie, it did mean quite a lot. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh, it doesn't bother me." It was a nice moment. I think it was a nice gesture from the club to do it. I think it was voted for by fans. And I think, as I said earlier, if you notice that team, it's largely that 03 team, like a big chunk of it is that sort of 03 team. I think the back row is myself, Jake and Hazy, I think. So look, it means a lot. I'm passionate about the club. It means a lot to me. So to get that recognition was nice.
Yeah. What do you want to achieve next? What does success look like to you now? In not just Gloucester-Hartpury, but what does the next few years for you?
Like genuinely, it sounds cheesy, but family, I think, is always first. So, I've definitely had points in my career where I've been really focused on career. Like Singapore, building that business, my wife was working really hard. We were quite career focused. So I think as soon as we moved back, we've made a really big effort to at least one of us always be there for kids, like drop off, kids pick up, being around in the evening. So I think first and foremost, just want to be there for my kids, be like a dad that goes to their sporting games and stuff. It's not even always easy because I'm balancing. I guess I'm quite ambitious. Got a few balls in the air, right? Trying to build a career. I'm really focused on my job at the moment. I'm really passionate about this group of players and staff. Being CEO of Gloucester-Hartpury, I think I'm very lucky. And said, big goal of mine is I would love our program to match the men's in terms of the opportunity for these girls. I think they really deserve it. I've got massive admiration for them. So I think just short term, be a good dad, be a good husband, try and do the best I can for this group of players and staff, and would love to win some more premierships. But most importantly, like this equity bit, I think these girls deserve a lot, and I think if we can deliver them the best program in the world and try and get it as close to the men in terms of all those opportunities, I think that's my sort of short term goal.
James, thank you so much, man. Have you got any?
It's been brilliant, but I definitely feel like I've talked about myself enough for one day, 2 hours. If you
hugely appreciate it, mate.
Want to really elevate this group of girls. So if you ever want me to come back and bring a couple of the players 100%. Along,
I'd absolutely love that.
I think girls like Mo, Zoe are really inspirational. Some of the best athletes in the world. proud of my time at Gloucester, and you try not to talk about it too much, but I think the city loves Gloucester Rugby, and it's quite fun talking about it. So thank you.
It's
Thanks
been really,
for having me.
really good, mate. Thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Cheers, James. Thank you so much to James for his time. Thank you to you for listening, watching, whatever you do, wherever you do it. Make sure you're subscribed, review, all those lovely things. Follow us on social, blah-de-blah. You'll find us. Get in touch, hello@startonlinepod.com with any thoughts, questions, concerns, guest suggestions, sponsorship ideas, cool things. Speak to me. Talk to me. Until next time. Goodbye.